Ooh, that's too loud. Hang on, guys. All right, I am Debbie with you here on Sunday night. We got a little bit of a weird thing going on. I'm trying to connect with Blog Talk. Hang on. I don't hear nothing on Blog Talk Radio. Let's kill that and pick up Saloosh. Can I do that? No, I've got to dial into Blog Talk. What am I doing? I'm going crazy here. Let's go to Skype. So tonight we're going to have another show about the Bible. Fun stuff, huh? So everybody gather around and put the kids to bed and let's get ready to learn something that maybe we didn't know before tonight. If you're listening out there, Audrey, I just want to say how much I love you and how much I miss you and how much I adore you. And all is good. All is real good, as a matter of fact. I made the best dinner tonight. My husband ate more food than I have ever in my life seen anybody eat in the history of eating. I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal what I've seen them eat. They eat like insane people. And, Victor ate probably enough food for, how many people, Victor? What, 20 people maybe? Absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's like thump like a watermelon.
Okay, I'm on the air, Victor. This is my serious night. 1-347-202-0414. Victor, it's my dial-in number. Please call that number. That's the number. You're a mean one, Mr. Vic. You really are.
Ron White say, pants are a little snug.
What?
Ron White says, pants are a little snug there.
Oh, I got a busy signal at Blogstock. Okay, boys, hang on. We're trying to get connected to Blogstock Radio here.
Blog Talk Radio. Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. You are now in the host queue.
Oh, and let's go pick up that host queue right now and see what's going on. What's up, Vic?
Unmuted.
Hello, Blog Talk Radio people. Uh-oh. Goodness gracious, there we are. Let me put this on mute. This is not easy to do, beautiful people out there in Spreaker world and Blog Talk Radio world. What's going on, Vic? And, I am juggling everything here. And I'm having fun. Tonight was a great night. Brag on my dinner, Victor. These people are like, oh, she doesn't know how to cook.
She knows to cook real good. Good old home cooking. With, what we had tonight, it was,
roast beast with fresh carrots, fresh potatoes. I'll tell you one thing. I have never tasted, I said roast beef. Oh. I've never tasted vegetables that wonderful before in my life.
Little carrots.
I didn't think you were ever going to stop eating. Did you eat the whole thing? I'm not being funny. Did you? Stephen will kill you if you did. So we're live on Spreaker.com. I'm so excited to hear from. How much have I missed Mr. Solution, Victor?
Very much so.
I have. I said, oh, look, I think he's already on the board. Victor's like, Debbie. He's adorable. I love Mr. Solution. I really do. It's weird. I can't say enough about the guy. He is what I call a class act. And I get nothing from Mr. Solution. He doesn't pay me anything. He's not my business partner, nothing. But I absolutely know what I'm talking about. Mr. Solution is a class act. And I am proud to know him. And maybe someday he will be as classy an act as I am. No, of course, I'm joking. So let's go to the board on Blog Talk Radio, and hopefully Mr. Solution will have some sort of a monologue he can give me here while I get some things fixed up over here. So let's go to Lay Board. Here we are. Skype caller, I believe, or you're on the air with Miss Debbie.
Yeah, good evening, Debbie. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. It was like,
wow, we worked our way through the electronics. Happy, prosperous, and healthy New Year. How are you?
I came down with a serious bout of the flu, Mr. Solution. No,
Oh, my.
serious. I have not been sick. I don't know. Have I ever been sick, Victor?
Not in quite a while.
I think I got sick back after I had one of my children. I mean, I'm just one of those people that never get sick. And I came down with type A influenza. It swept through my house. I was telling some people that it was like on the Ten Commandments when the Passover, the smoke with, the cloud was crawling around on the floor. That's what it looked like when it came into our house. How are you, sir?
Yes, I'm absolutely spectacular. I saw that you did a show, and I saw you did a short show on Tamiflu, and presumably that was related. But yeah, being locked inside because it's very cold is very opportunistic for various viruses. But Debbie, I want to ask you this before I forget it. Now, I dialed on Spreaker. I tried to get in several times, and I dialed 214-444-5488, and I always got a busy signal.
Damn it. That's what happened to Mr. Midnight Movie for a while. I don't know. He tried, and then all of a sudden he gets it every time he calls. But there's nobody on it right now. There's no reason it should give you a busy signal. Mr. Midnight Movie goes through every time he calls it. But he did get that busy signal, sir, for several days, and then all of a sudden it just worked for him for some reason. Are you calling from a cell phone or a landline?
Oh, well, it's usually a landline. But that is the correct number, the 214?
Yes, sir. 444-5488.
5488.
Yeah, that would be so cool.
And I noticed you don't give that number out while you are broadcasting on Spreaker. Is there a reason for that?
No, not really. I think the main people come through Skype. They have a Skype account, and it's free if you Skype to Skype call. Like if you had a Skype account, you would call me at Debi_Daily, and then you would be on with me on Spreaker and on Blog Talk Radio through Skype. That's how everybody calls me on Spreaker. Is they just call me. It's called a Skype call. They just
okay. Well, maybe I'm missing something. I could be. If someone just dials you from a regular phone, cell phone, or landline, dials this 214 number,
yes, sir.
Would they be able to get in?
Yes, sir.
Or should they be able to get in?
Absolutely. But I'm telling you, for some...
Okay. That's the problem then, yeah. Okay, maybe I just need to try a few more times, because after 3 or 4, 5 or 6 times, I just kind of give up. But there were only a couple of shows that I wanted to call into. But, yeah, I think it's good. I can tell that it's very, what I say, in the developing stages, talking about race. That's the astounding thing about this country, and I know you had several shows on race. I don't have any interest in it except the truth.
Mr. Midnight,
there's just
did you
so much lack of knowledge. There's a guy named Tim Weiss, and it's spelled Wise, W-I-S-E. I think he presents a much better balanced picture of the race issue. And Debbie, I was a little bit disappointed with you following my son, who is obviously ill-informed on most things, but I think the issue of race is not dealt with fairly historically. And, of course, first of all, I heard you identify me as black. I've never identified myself as that. And I think it's unfortunate that everybody has to be force-fitted into a racial category. And having conversations such as we have, there's no need to identify a person by race unless they want to. If they want to identify themselves by a particular race, and as we've said before, although I notice we keep slipping and going back to the race, we're all the same race. We may be of different ethnicities, but one of the really pitiful things
but Mr. If I could interrupt you for a second, The only reason all that crap came up was because that gentleman attacked me, and it was beyond. Did you hear the show where the man attacked me?
Yes.
Okay.
I heard the shows. It was unfortunate, but because.
But Mr. Midnight Movie does make everything about race. Everything. Victor, doesn't he?
Well, he does, because let me describe Midnight Movie for you. And I thought of this, and I have to chuckle. He is a funny guy. But if you can imagine a person slipping down a precipice or slipping down a mountainside, and the only twig that they can grasp is that of, well, in this case, for him, it would be race, because he's unsuccessful from a core basis. He's unsuccessful at everything else. But I have shared with you all that a much more fruitful and resolution necessary area to focus on, number one, is the illegal immigration issue. That you're giving out money directly to people of another
Well,
country.
did you hear what I said at one point during one of those shows?
That's number one. Number two,
Mr. Solution?
I'm sorry, go ahead. What?
Did you hear what I said?
I didn't hear you.
Did you hear what I said on one of the shows? I said, this is exactly what Mr. Solution says that we should deal with, is the illegal immigrants, and we should band together, because I don't see color. I mean, there's going to be times in my life on my show that the race card is played, and I'm going to talk about it with whoever's on the show, although I frankly don't see race. I don't see color. I just see people. That's all I see. When somebody walks in my house, I don't go, let's see, white guy, black guy, Mexican guy. I don't see that. I just see a bunch of guys. I mean, I hug, I kiss them all, I love everybody, but Mr. Midnight Movie does push a heavy agenda that almost everything goes down to race. Everything is either a black...
Well, the reason for that is because he's lost in every other area of life. And this seems to be something, it's almost like pap. It's like baby food for the morons and the idiots. Mm-hmm. And so they'll shift to the race issue because they've lost at everything else. But do you agree with the notion, and I heard one guy who he had on there to discuss race even agreed that there's one race. Now, he didn't take it as far as I am and say the other groups are ethnicities. But the fact that everybody speaks the same
Well, I
language
said that. I said that to that guy.
There are nuanced differences.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody should seek to speak English better. But anyone judging Americans from outside of America, once they hear the people's speech patterns, immediately they identify them as Americans. Now, it's interesting that everyone else can identify Americans as Americans, but Americans don't identify themselves as Americans. And so, I'm really concerned, but as a student of history, I know that nations have come into existence and gone out of existence. When's the last time you've seen a Hittite or an Amorite or a Philistine or a Jebusite? And I could just go on and on, or a Moabite. And so groups come in and go out of existence as a result of their inappropriate behavior. And I would say the United States is due for a downshift in their existence, because when you get people that are focused on nothing while everything else is coming in to sap their resources. Jesus made the statement, a house divided cannot stand. And it could be the case. I don't know for sure, but I'm leaning in a particular direction. It could be the case that Americans don't deserve to continue to exist. History will determine if that is indeed the case. If they're so stupid, they can't get their heads out of their nethermost parts and see where they should be going and kind of come together on fundamental issues like whose damn country this is, I submit to you that their time is rather limited, and so the thing is that 3M, you guys seem to follow him, and I think that is so inappropriate, and I'm going to use the word stupid, because that guy really knows nothing. He doesn't even take care of his own body. How can you follow someone who doesn't even take care
I
of the things that
I don't necessarily follow him. He comes to my shows.
Well,
You'll never see me go to his show.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, Debbie, I do hear you, and I think you're probably at least 4 times smarter than he is, maybe more. But and you do what you want to do.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be honest with you. Mr. Midnight Movie reminds me somewhat of my little brother that I lost. He is about the same age that he would be. He's about, you know what I mean? And there's something about, although I know what you're talking about as far as race goes, Mr. Midnight Movie, I know him in a different way. When we're talking offline, we talk about things like movies and dogs that he's having to babysit and stuff like that. He talks about his father. He'll talk about people in his life. And I really have kind of got to know him. And I will say this much. He does have an enormous respect for you. It's a very strange situation because I think that he is enamored with you in a certain sense. And yet his coat that he wears, his shield that he wears of being like a racist type person forbids that. And so he sort of wars within himself over that. But I think that he is just crazy about you, to be honest with you.
No, well, I like him too. And in fact, he and I mean, he was very isolated and very deserted. And I would come on his show just for the purpose. I said, well, this guy needs at least one person to be out there, as it were.
I remember.
So I would come on his show, and he's kind of funny. I don't dislike him.
No.
I laugh at him quite a bit, and I mean that. I laugh at his jokes, his mannerisms, this sort of thing. And I think he's somewhat of a stand-up comic. But I think you have explained so much, because otherwise it just made no sense the way you tended to support him, but you see him as reflecting your deceased brother.
And I've told him that before. Chubby, a giggler, like a teddy bear type of a guy, doesn't, kind of awkward around women a little bit, and he reminds me of what he would be. And I've told him that before. He knows that. He knows that he reminds me of Jay a little bit. So, I mean, not a lot, not in looks so much, but just the way he acts, he reminds me of being around Jay. So it's kind of a sweet situation. And that's not the reason.
Yeah, mannerism.
Exactly.
So I can appreciate that. At least that at least makes sense. But I think the issue of illegal immigration, the male-female dynamic, which most people, including myself, are failures at that. Now, it's not totally my fault. It's because the culture doesn't prepare us for relationships. And the Bible Belt actually has a greater divorce rate, believe it or not. And in Malachi, it says that the last book of the Old Testament, or the Septuagint, actually, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Officially, the Gospels are also the Old Testament. The New Testament doesn't start until Acts chapter 2. But nevertheless, what's generally considered the Old Testament in the Jewish, Judeo-Christian Bible is Malachi. And in that book, it says God hates divorce. And that was a big issue when Jesus came, too, because the Pharisees were questioning him, and they put it in the context of the Mosaic Law. And all these questions were designed ultimately to kill Jesus, to find a reason to convict him of blasphemy or some sort of serious Bible violation so that they could execute him, which ultimately they did. But the point I'm making is I see a three-pronged necessity for exposure, examination, and finding a solution to if men and women are going to survive, and possibly the nation. Number one, illegal immigration. Number two, I would say the male-female dynamic. And, of course, we could certainly deal with the class issue. And so the male-female issue is an area at which most of us fail miserably. And I was about to mention the Bible Belt as having a higher divorce rate, much higher than the general population. Now, they call other people heathens. They claim to be blood-bought, Bible-toting Christians, but yet they fail in a most important area that God is concerned with, and that's the area of male-female relationships, particularly marriage, commitment, lifetime commitment to each other. And so this is something that 3M doesn't focus on, and presumably he doesn't have the equipment, mental or otherwise, to really deal with these issues, mental, emotionally, and that sort of thing. And, of course, the other is, of course, dating. And I'm really mentioning four because I also mentioned the economic situations. I don't think we talk enough about any of those important areas. Now, we may be considered, we are a type of family, but we may be considered a sort of buffoonish, silly group of people. And I think I've heard you say, or someone quote you as having said, that a large percentage of people on BTR are insane. And I think you put it in the 90 percentile. Is that correct? I mean, can you repeat that just for clarification?
I absolutely stand by that. I've heard things that are nothing short, that can only be defined as insane behavior. Absolutely insane. Absolutely.
And how did you, what was your statement? What percentage of people on BTR are insane?
I would say, as far as what I have listened to on the nighttime crew, I would say almost 90% of them, 9 out of every 10 are just categorically nuts.
Right. And I noticed something else, and maybe you want to comment on this. Now, in order to do anything in America, you've got to have a certain level of finance. Now, I'm on BTR. Now, I work too, and of course, I have a great deal of liberty being an entrepreneur. But I notice some people are on here, and presumably they're either successful entrepreneurs or they're on some type of subsidy. What's your position on that?
I don't see what they do. I mean, I don't see. They live on here. They live on Blog Talk Radio, and some of them live on Spreaker. If they're not doing a show, they're at a show 24 hours a day. And I'm like going, when do you people work? When do you women take care of your children? When do you clean and do laundry and do things like that? Because that takes time. When I came in here to sit down to dial into the show, I told Victor, I said, do you realize I haven't sat down for 5 hours? And he was like, no kidding. I mean, I prepared a meal. I did laundry. I vacuumed. I mopped the floors out there. You know, I have to do that. That is my job, and I just don't see how these people do it. I do not see how. I won't name names, but I know people, Mr. Solution, that, like, for example, I'm going to bring this out. Brown Beasley was on, he called into my show the other night on Blog Talk Radio, and he said, well, now, Debbie, you're supposed to be a Christian. Just jumped all over me, real snippy and snide-like. And he goes, I frankly think that people on Blog Talk Radio are nuts. And I said, Brown Beasley, you live on Blog Talk Radio. You know, he is just gotten so, he goes, you do your Christian show with Mr. Solution, and you said, you go, the Bible teaches us to turn the other cheek. And I said, no, if you knew the Bible, which you don't, Jesus said that to Peter. He did not teach that. He did not say, go, and if somebody comes at you, turn the other cheek. I said, he simply said that one day to Peter when they were walking out of a small assembly, and one of the high priests came and yelled at Peter and Jesus. He said, did you know that John the Baptist has been beheaded, just like you're going to be beheaded? And Peter turned and drew his fist back, and Jesus grabbed his arm, and he said, don't turn the other cheek. Just let it go. You know, don't fight for me. And so he goes, so if that guy called you all those names, you're supposed to turn the other cheek, Miss Christian. And oh my gosh, just horrible, horrible, horrible. And he always plays that Christian card with me. Well, you're a Christian, Debbie. And I said, Mr. Brown Beasley, if you knew anything about the Bible, you would know that one of the things that Christianity stands on is the forgiveness of sins. If Jesus Christ's death was not in forgiveness of sins, then his whole life was a waste. I said he came for
right.
Yeah, and I was
Now,
so
Debbie,
mad.
to your credit, I'm sorry, you do have a husband, so at least, even if you are accused, now you're saying you spend all this other time taking care of your family and cooking. I heard you, previously say that. And, of course, to your credit, but most of these people, including myself, do not have a significant other. And I don't think most of the people on here are capable of having a significant other. Now, maybe that is remedial, and I'm always optimistic. I'm an optimistic realist, and possibly, and I don't want to put too much on your plate, you can have shows that deal with that, call in experts or bring in panelists that deal with the financial area and the relationship area, because most of the people on this show, now you just said 90% are insane, and I don't know if you see that as having a remedial or having a remedy.
You take for example Goofy Bone. Okay, he seems normal enough, but with him,
now, I like Goofy Bone.
I understand, but I'm just saying for him to concoct the insane things that he says that I do or that I am, I don't know where you come from, but from where we come from, that's crazy behavior. That's insanity. I mean, just as the things that I've heard out of that woman that used to deal with me all the time. I don't even say her name anymore. Katie, that young girl. The list just goes on and on and on and on and on. I mean, people just do crazy things. Crazy things I've never heard of.
Yeah, I think insanity is pretty much standard.
My dad used to say, y'all can put all the names you want on it, but where we're from, we call them crazy.
Right.
And,
right.
A lot of people...
But those are a couple of areas I think we can look at. And I know 3M is afraid of those areas. Now, remember, he talks about walking on eggshells. But when it comes to a woman, he does walk on eggshells because he's afraid to say anything that will offend a woman that he think he may have sex with. And, of course, generally, it appears that they don't want to have sex with him. And just kind of hoping. But, I mean, I see his frustration with race, which doesn't exist, by the way, and that certainly lends to your comment toward insanity. But I see his frustration with women, with money, with not having a successful career. I see all those things as being core issues that render him and people like him dysfunctional. I would hear him talk about he was hot. He constantly talks about drinking water. And I haven't studied diabetes very much. I don't have diabetes, and I don't know anyone that has it directly. But I understand that, that does cause one to be at an elevated temperature, apparently. And I didn't know that before I kept hearing 3M mention, I need some water.
Right.
And I'm thinking, why doesn't he work on his health? If he put the energy into working his health, working his finances, well, just those two, I'm not even going to reference a relationship, because if one has their health, physical and mental, and finances, I mean, a relationship is nice, don't get me wrong, but you really don't need one.
No,
I mean,
you don't.
do you
Absolutely, no.
If you have the money you want, you can entertain yourself, you can go out on dates, this sort of thing, and you can really be a fairly whole person just meeting those two important criteria. Would you agree with that now that I pointed out?
I do agree with you 100%. I think it goes on a one-by-one basis. Myself personally, I could not wait to be a wife and a mother. It was what I was basically brought up to be, and that's all I wanted to be. I mean, I don't get me wrong, I have knowledge beyond beyond a lot of people in the legal realm. I mean, I can run circles around most third-year law students, and I'm not an idiot by any stroke of the brush, but I lived most of my adult life to be where I am right now. This is where I wanted to be. I wanted to be a mom surrounded by my children and my husband and my family. That's what I wanted to be. And not many women in my family tree ever really did too much outside of the home, although we all are educated. Every one of us are educated. And when the children got older, we pursued different types of careers. But I have yet to find anything outside of being with my husband, because he's his mother will say, if she was on the line, that Debi is a crutch with Victor, because he has always relied on me to give him advice in business, in anything. I mean, he can't even, he'll ask me everything. And so I've always sort of been there for him. And if I wasn't out there cooking and cleaning, I probably wouldn't be here, because he has standards too. And I have a duty as a wife to do what I do. It is my job, what I do. It's not that I want to do it. It's like I have to do it. And it's what I do. And this is all secondary. That's why it comes on at 10 o'clock at night. It's because this is my time. They're all out there. They've all been fed, and they can all go away. No, I'm joking. But, every Sunday I try to teach Heather anyway. Stephen works all the dadgum time, but I try to teach Heather a verse out of the Bible that I think is very, very prominent for something. And there was one verse that I wanted to say, and I wanted to mention it on our shows on Sundays, that in the book of Isaiah, chapter 58, it sort of begins around verse 9. It basically says the people were all bitching about, why isn't God answering our prayers? And if people out there, if you ever pray and you wonder, why doesn't God answer my prayers? Why doesn't he hear me? Why doesn't he do what I ask? Because in Matthew 7, it clearly says, ask and you shall be answered. Knock and the door will open. Seek and ye shall find. It promises that. Well, it clearly states in the book of Isaiah that says, and I sort of loosely quote this, verses 9 says, and then you will call and the Lord will answer. You will cry for help and he will say, here I am. And that's all he's just going to say. I'm not going to do a dadgum thing into you. And then the next thing I'm not going to help you at all, because he says, if you will do away with the yoke of oppression, pointing of fingers, malicious talk, spend yourself better in helping the hungry, satisfy the need of the oppressed, then your light will rise up in the darkness and your night will become like the noonday. The Lord will guide you. He will satisfy your needs and will strengthen your frame. You will be like a well-watered garden, like a spring whose waters never fail. Your people will rebuild their ancient ruins. You will just be great. And the reason why he doesn't answer prayers is because he doesn't like what's going on in your world right now. And he wants you to straighten up and then come back to him, because that's the way he works. And that's my little short 2-minute lesson for the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that's true. And just remember, as I'm sure you do, well, first of all, a couple of things. About the scriptures, which are absolutely wonderful. But you and Victor have a synergy, and that most people don't have. Although, looking at the power of the woman, and I point this out so regularly, and I often say that if a woman, any woman, and I can also say ostensibly the white American male, if a woman, an American woman, or a white American male doesn't have a compatible partner and wants one, then something is wrong with their attitude character, personality, and or weight.
It's the law of nature, Mr. Solution, that we abide with a mama bear in our caves. I mean, a man is not meant to live alone. I mean, it doesn't seem right to me either. I mean, I've never seen my father more crippled than after my mother died. He was literally, it was so sad, so sad to watch him after being married to that woman all of his life. He was literally crippled. I mean, he didn't know what to do. He would eat fried bologna. Yeah, it was horrible.
Go ahead.
No, I was done. It was just so sad to watch him try to make it through a day.
No, you're right. The hardest thing for America, now that was a different era. That was a different generation. And I would submit to you that the social contract between men and women, it has changed. But nevertheless, I think that...
I disagree, Mr. Solution. I disagree. I believe that these women nowadays have gotten so complacent that these men are like, well, I'm not really ready. I'm not ready. And so they get pregnant and have these babies, and they have what they call a baby mama or a baby dad. That's my baby.
Right.
That's my baby daddy. Because they don't want to be
The
tied.
government now, this is something that 3M, but he tends to forget that. And he seems like a guy, and I'll just say this, and I would say this to his face, and you know me well enough to know that I would. But he immediately forgets the most important things, and he focuses on the ancillary things, the subordinate things.
Trivial.
And the government fosters that behavior between men and women, the antagonistic, the non-cooperation, and it really uses women.
Oh, the government's their baby daddy.
And it's generally a financial and a disruptive goal, because it knows that if it destroys the mind of the woman, and there are evil people in the world, and I think there are a lot of contingencies that want to destroy the family. And they know the way to do that, just as Satan of old went through the woman. If you want to destroy the family, you go through the woman. You give her equal rights, but not equal responsibility.
Bingo.
And then you make her think that she has the moral high ground. And then, of course, men like Mr. Midnight Movie, a woman could really, literally reach down his throat and pull out his rectum through his mouth. And he would say, "Excuse me, I'm sorry."
Mm-hmm.
So he doesn't know how to confront a woman with truth because he's not a man of truth. He doesn't know how to do that. And so that is the situation today. We've given women this awesome power that men cannot veto. And, of course, women have taken that power and they have run with it. And they've basically created the situation. Women and the government have created the horrid situation that we have today. And because we men have been taught not to criticize women, not to critique women, women literally get away with murder. They can destroy the society. Now, I know I'll probably get some feedback for that, but, I don't give a damn. I mean, the minimum I can do is tell the truth. And a woman could walk all over 3M's face with stiletto heels, and he would get up and apologize. That's just how psyched out he is.
Boy, I wish I could say something, but I'd be afraid of be betraying my friendship with him. But let me just assure you that what you just said is pretty much on the money.
Well, Debbie, look, I am the reason I'm at the level that I am is because I've never had to kiss anybody's ass. Never. Now, I'm a very nice guy, and I wear that as a badge of honor. But I don't have to kiss anybody's ass.
I don't either.
And so I can state the truth unabashedly.
Well, there is a female that continues to call him and bother him and call him, and I asked him as recently as almost 24 hours ago, why he continued to maintain a quasi-relationship with her, and he said, because I just want to keep the peace. I don't want to hear it, you know. And I told my daughter,
Let me translate that. Let me translate that, and you can probably translate it as well as I do. He's walking on eggshells.
Bingo. And I told my daughter today, I'll bring my daughter in here. She's out there folding laundry. I said to her, she goes, well, Mom, it's just that nobody wants to say anything to Philip's brother about how they raise their baby because they'll just get all upset. And I said, Heather, that right there is selling that baby down the river. She's got a boyfriend that's got a brother that's got a baby mama, the same bullshit deal. And they've got this 3-year-old that spends 18 hours a day in front of a TV.
Wow.
It's a very sad situation. And I said, and she went to say something to one of them about it, and she got her ass jumped on. You know, don't you tell us how to make it, you know. And he doesn't even talk, Mr. Solution. He's 3 years old, and he's like, because they don't do anything with this child. And they bought him a Wii for Christmas and a 35-inch flat screen. A 3-year-old. A 3-year-old. A 3-year-old. And,
my goodness.
And Heather goes, well, you know, and I said, it's people like that, Heather, that don't want to ruffle feathers, that don't want to piss off Annie M. or Uncle Henry. They don't want to get them all pissed off. I'll get them pissed off real quick because that baby deserves more than, you know, and I said that to my daughter probably 2 hours ago out there in our house. So I agree with you 100%. I'll ruffle feathers. You know, I mean, if I don't.
Someone has to stand up for the sane truth. Well, there's really only one kind of truth, but I'm making allowances for Blog Talk characters, and I enjoy Blog Talk for the best because it's really free radio. Now, it's not absolute. Now, bringing in Jewish producer, and I think that guy is as dumb as a box of rocks. And the reason that is the case is if we go back to when they got pulled off the air. Now, you read a portion of the terms of use agreement. 3M, in his little statement, because I go back, when I get time, I go and listen to some of the archives. 3M, in my 2 cents, said that he was responsible for his show being pulled. He said he violated the rules, and I think there were people waiting in line. Blog Talk may have been surveilling his show. I'm not sure of that. But Blog Talk may have been doing surveillance. And even if they weren't, there were plenty of people, apparently, from what I've heard, waiting in line to comment to management or whomever about his behavior. And he just put his glass chin out there, as it were, to be struck. And, of course, now my point is that Jewish producers said, well, I don't understand why my show was pulled. And I said, wow, how stupid can you be? Did you read the term of use agreement? Would you agree with that, Debbie? I mean, you're a real sharp lady.
I told him that. I told him.
I've got to give credit where credit is due. I wouldn't say it if it weren't true. But now, you understood that the terms of agreement were violated in multiple dimensions. Would you agree?
Yes, and I told them that, and I told them many times. I said, you guys are treading on thin ice. I would have already been axed out of here if I would have done some of the things that you guys have done. Seriously. No, you're right.
Oh, well, I think anybody would. And of course, for him to state, you know, kind of like Al Bundy and his neighbor were feuding. And after both his neighbor Steve, I used to watch that. It was called Married with Children. Do you recall that, Al Bundy, the shoe salesman?
It comes on late at night sometimes in the wee hours of the morning, but I never watched it when it was in its prime time. When it's in prime time, no.
Yeah, I don't watch it anymore either, but I used to. And after he and his neighbor were feuding, Steve, and I forget Steve's last name, but
the young one,
you know, his show name. But he and his neighbor were feuding. And they end up really destroying each other's house. and or homes. And Al Bundy was sitting on a smoldering cinder block, and he said, and I quote, "I know there's a lesson in this somewhere, but I'd be damned if I know what it is." And that, believe it or not, just like Gilligan's Island and a number of other movies, they really depict life. They say that life imitates art, or art imitates life. And so, at any rate, that's the way I see Jewish Producer, as being totally dumbfounded and befuddled to the obvious. I mean, how stupid can you be? Go back and read I read the terms of agreement, the terms of use agreement, and the violations. I read that in all of 2 to 3 minutes. And I go, wow, this guy did commit, multiple infractions. But Jewish Producer said he didn't understand that. And that's all I'm really commenting
Well,
on.
it says right here, it says you agree not to post, upload, transmit, or cause to be broadcasted. Number 1, any material that is obscene, indecent, offensive, libelous, pornographic, hateful, racially or ethnically, help me out here, Mr. Masseuse, ethnically, I think you're very intelligent, ethnically offensive, defamatory, unreasonably violent, threatening, intimidating, or harassing, or containing falsehoods or misrepresentations that could damage any other person. And then it also says...
Well, let me give you a real conundrum here, and it's just so funny. I have to get my comic relief somewhere. I don't smoke marijuana, so, blame me if you please. But when I read the terms of use agreement, and I saw how they had violated them, and then, of course, I think he said he lost money, and the fact that he couldn't understand the clear violations, and moreover, if it had to do with, and they think it had to do with this, but maybe it didn't, but let's just say, for discussion's sake, it had to do with violating someone's privacy. Let's just run with that. Could they say what that was? That would be a secondary violation of someone's privacy. If someone's privacy is
they
violated,
cannot say...
and then it's repeated, it's discussed.
Right.
Go ahead.
No, you're right. No, keep going. You're doing perfect. No, you're saying what I was going to say. Go ahead.
I just had to chuckle because I say again, how now that guy is not a Jew. We said that now he trashes anyone who is a Jew, or this guy is not a Jew. He is he's a demon. He's not a good person. But I didn't believe he was that stupid, because when he said, I need them to tell me, or whatever entity in authority, tell me why my show was pulled.
Or who, they think that somebody in specific did it, that they had to make a complaint, which I kind of agree with, but then again, they could have been watching their show just by virtue of having complaints made about it, and decided to do it on their own.
Of course, they could have been surveilling. Now, I liked their show. I had no problem with it. I enjoyed their show, because I think it was just mostly buffoonery, and I would just laugh, as I do at a lot of shows. But, I mean, I thought, wait a minute, if you violated the terms of agreement in privacy, no one can reveal that to anyone. That would be just like, I think enough said, but I just thought it so profoundly, stupid that he couldn't comprehend that. 3M got it. And I'm saying, wow, now here JP has all this education. Presumably he has 6 or 7 years beyond high school. I think the guy has roughly a master's degree. Am I correct?
Yes, you're correct. Mm-hmm.
And he's as dumb as a box of rocks, at least on that issue. And presumably, I'm just going to extrapolate. I would contend that he's not that smart on other issues.
Well, everybody was
Because
trying to
also-
blame me because they were saying, oh, Debbie's the 404 queen. She gets everybody 404, and Debbie did it. And for a while, Jewish producer thought I did it and didn't speak to me. And he's just recently started speaking to me again about, a few weeks ago. So, which is
Well, I
ridiculous.
think no one did it that they think did it, more than likely. But also the financial thing he brought up, he said, and this is just the spreadable, as it were, or expanding this issue. He has to be stupid in finances, too, because someone who would do that hitch their star to a falling wagon, as it were, and then wonder why that happened. I heard him say he lost a lot of money when his show was pulled. And I'm just thinking, did he ever read, do you know, and then I'll be through with this, do you know if he ever read or even has read in the aftermath the terms of use agreement?
I would hope so, because section A, number 7 that you didn't get, I was fixing to get to, says violates the privacy of others, including other users on the site, and or impersonates another person or user of the site. So there you go.
Has he ever mentioned that to you? I guess that's the only other question.
I don't believe so. They're just convinced that either you had his show 404 or I had his show 404, which I've gone on the books as saying I'll take a polygraph. I didn't do it. I didn't make a complaint on it.
Well, I don't think it needs to go that far. Just the word is good enough. But 3M has admitted that he did it. He said, based on his inappropriate behavior, that he had the show pulled, and he was very candid and direct.
Yeah, he said that they
So
were
if they get
pushing the
another
envelope.
show,
He said they had
and
been pushing the envelope.
I hope they are able to, manage themselves and not do anything that's blatantly violative. And I don't think they critique them after the first time. I think there have to be. Now, I don't know if this is in the contract, but presumably, because of the nature of people on Blog Talk, they will give you multiple chances to correct, or they will give one multiple chances to correct their behavior. Would you agree with that? Does that? And I'm just saying that. I don't know that to actually be the case, but that's a presumption that I strongly lean toward.
Well, I've only had my problems with them one time, and that was the Bill Wagner crew when they did that stupid swatting of the house behind my back, and they did it in... See, a lot of people do things in my name as me, and they got me thrown off of Blog Talk Radio when I had done nothing. And that's the only run-in, and there was absolutely no warning. It was like, hi, guess what? You're gone. And I was like, what? It was really shocking to me. Shocking. But I do know that another time I was sent a letter saying, do not talk about other hosts, and consider this a warning. I do know that they will send you a warning letter, and then after that, they like the letter said, Debbie, please be advised that you are in violation of our terms of service, terms of use by discussing other hosts or something like that. In a negative manner or whatever, and playing drops from their show and everything like that. And and then they said, if you don't stop whatever, we're gonna whatever. Then I never heard another word from them. But
discipline. But I think more of a courtesy than a policy. I think that's just a courtesy. I don't know. I'm just presuming. I do know business, of course, and I know how a good business generally operates. So, at any rate, I think we've gone over some good personal issues. Now, we left off on Genesis chapter 25.
Did we?
And
okay.
It's up to you as to what direction you want to pursue this.
No, I'm ready to go. It is.
Big book.
It's presently.
This book appears larger than even Job.
We're getting so much feedback on this book, too. I mean, we're getting feedback like you've never seen in your life. Just people are, everywhere on it. I get so much feedback on it. It's crazy. unbelievable. Really, a lot.
It's a real life book. There's no doubt about that, and I've really enjoyed learning some of the things. Abraham really had a troubled home, and I mean really troubled home, to where he had to send his son out in the wilderness, and so we see a lot of turmoil in the Mr. and Mrs. Abraham's home. And you know, I think we can take solace or comfort, as it were, with a lot of the problems we experience today. And this had God's oversight. Remember, God was with Abraham all this time. I mean, God spoke to Abraham personally. So I think this can be a tremendous boost to one who wants to perceive it this way. And by the way, we talk about this a lot. I studied a lot of science. I appreciate science. And most of the shows on the Science Channel are very atheistic. They don't have to be, because there's so much that they don't know. And I mean, I think if there's going to come a particular point to where they'll have to admit the truth. Now, they're trying to create a computer that will have human consciousness. Now, I heard one neurophysicist come on and basically say, you know, they'll never achieve that. They'll never achieve human consciousness through electronic devices or artificial devices. And so that's going to be an interesting.
It reminds me. It reminds me of the movie. It was called A1. About the boy named David that was a robot, but they gave him a heart, and he fell in love with his mother. I believe it was called A1. A1? You know me, I always mess up things like that. It was called Artificial Intelligence. A beautiful film with that young actor that did Stand By Me. I mean, My Girl, and Macaulay Culkin did it. Beautiful, sad, wonderful movie based on what I think is a lot to do with faith and religion and God. And he searched for the blue fairy, and he wanted to be a real boy. And that was based on the idea that they gave a robot feelings, you know.
Well, maybe you'll discuss that. I would love to hear the particulars of that. I mean, did the robot really achieve human consciousness?
Yes, I can barely watch it. It's absolutely heart-wrenching. He goes to look, because his mother dies. His mother's human, and he lives, of course, forever, and he doesn't understand it, why he can't be with his mother. And so they end up playing The Last Day. Oh, it's just really, it's hard to watch. It's so sad, and it's just beautifully written. It was done by the big guy that did all the, you know, Star Wars, and what's his name? Spielberg did it.
Gene Roddenberry?
Spielberg.
Oh, Steven Spielberg. Okay. Okay, yeah.
You know, the kid's name
is...
That
sounds like a wonderful movie.
His
if
name
I come
is,
across that, I'll definitely... I don't watch a lot of movies personally, but I do watch some, and I know a great deal of research goes into most good movies. So that sounds like a very interesting movie. And the thing I said to you, and tell me if you appreciate this or not, if there is no God, let's say there is no God, all bets are off. We can do anything we want to do. And by the way, I heard a debate with Tim, and if we do a debate, I want it to be interactive, not with Tim, of course, but, I mean, if we're able to conjure up a debate here, I would like for it to be interactive, because I think people can control themselves.
I heard you on Granny Ganja's show, and I was like, what is he doing? And they were all over you. Tim was out of his mind that night.
Tim is out of his mind, but I listened to Tim because I wanted to hear specific things. He had a debate on Michael's show, and it was pretty good, but Tim believes the Anunnaki. That was a Samaritan, actually a heathen Samaritan deity. And but see, that doesn't explain a damn thing. What I would like to ask Tim is, does the Anunnaki require anything of us? Because according to him, the Anunnaki and I think I'm pronouncing that right. The Anunnaki created human beings to do labor for them, to work the mines and really mine minerals for them, to enrich them.
It's hard to believe he came from a Christian home. Strange man, I'll tell you.
Again?
What. Hard to believe he came from a Christian home.
Well, he may have, and see, if you talk to any people in the Jehovah's Witness clan, or that's considered a non-Christian cult. Actually.
It's a
Jehovah's
cult.
Witness, and also that is their doctrine. And Mormons are too. They're considered a non-Christian cult by Orthodox historical Christianity. I used to study that sort of thing. But the thing of it is, if the Anunnaki created man, okay, where did the Anunnaki come from? That's the next. If I met an alien and if I could speak to the alien, that's the question I would want to ask the alien. But so Tim, now get this now, we have a great record of God and God's dealing with man. However, the Anunnaki, what I would like to ask Tim specifically is, number one, do we have a responsibility toward the Anunnaki? Do they demand anything of us? Because if we were just created by them, that's comparable to the deist position of some of the founding fathers of the country. Is that God is just kind of wound. He created the world, but he just kind of walked off and left it. And so, if that is the case, I would like to know. And they never got into this. Does the Anunnaki pose any accountability on humans? Are they responsible? And what are the consequences if humans don't obey? I would just like to see if this has a meaningful and a comprehensible, rational basis. Mm-hmm. You understand what I mean? Because if they just created humans and humans have no obligation, no responsibility to them, we're right back at square one. I would love for there not to be a God. I would, because, hey,
what?
God even says there's not one righteous. But the point of it is if there is no God, there is no morality, there is no good and evil. It's just whatever people want to do and whatever they can get away with.
Well, don't you think that's the way a lot
of
don't you think that's the way a lot of people live their lives? I mean, hurting.
No, that's a secondary issue. That's a separate issue. The issue, yes, I do agree with that, but not totally, because everybody borrows from a pre-existing standard. If you say there should be no murder, no society can exist if there is routine murder and theft. Those are the two big ones. You have to have those two in place and enforced. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Very well put.
Murder and theft. Those are the two pillars of any functional society. And that's why God, by the way, destroyed the old world. It was because they were just into murder. I mean, murder was the thing to do. Just kill a person. You're angry at them, you're mad at them.
No, he crawfished me on a bet and called me a liar.
Yeah, just kill them.
Like in Tombstone. Remember, that's what I was quoting Tombstone when Turkey Vermilion Jack came out of and he said, "Don't you raise that arm," and he shot him, and he says, "What happened, Creek Johnson?" He said he crawfished a bet and called me a liar. So I shot him, and he was just his. He did. He said it because he.
That's a lot.
Yeah, okay. I hope there was so much murder back then. It was unbelievable. It was like if you survived in a day back in the Old West, you really did something. I mean, people just shot people for it. It was legal. I mean, it was crazy. It was unbelievable. No, I understand.
Well, in that particular context, now they didn't do that everywhere, of course.
No.
And like I say, if we do that, then of course all bets are off. We can't survive. because we're in fear of being murdered or we're murdering someone. And but the point is, and I think the atheists and agnostics who actually piggyback and borrow from pre-existing moral standards, if there is no God, ultimately, we can do whatever we want to do. Right?
You're so right. You're taking the
Exactly.
thoughts.
I mean, so it comes down to a very simple equation. Either God exists and said, thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not steal, or you should not steal, to put it in the modern-day vernacular, or that is just a concoction of man, and it really doesn't matter.
Let me tell
So
you what.
go ahead and steal and murder. And by the way, all the people that you love are meaningless if there is no God.
Everything
There's
is
no
meaningless.
meaning.
Everything is meaningless.
Go ahead.
Everything is meaningless. If God does not exist, man and the universe are inevitably doomed to death. Man, like all biological organisms must eventually die, and with no hope of any type of immortality, man's life leads only to the grave. I mean, it's...
And I wish, exactly, and periodically, if you would just... Because, see, I don't think anyone will disagree with Dr. Weinberg. And if periodically you would play that, where Dr. Weinberg, our lovable atheist, theoretical physicist, and Nobel Prize winner, where he says that the universe is pointless. Now, I don't agree with him on that, because you remember I contrasted him with the Solomon of old. And Solomon concluded that, God does exist, and we have a responsibility to God. But if indeed it's as Dr. Weinberg says, and that is the universe is pointless, then, of course, your loved ones, they're meaningless. Your love never meant anything. You don't mean anything. You came from nothing, no thing. And you're going to return to that. Your life is meaningless before it happened. It's meaningless during its occurrence. And obviously it's meaningless subsequent to your demise. Mm-hmm. Did I put that in a fashionable modern-day vernacular?
I would go so far as to say that if there is no God, life is absurd.
That's right. And useless.
Useless, absurd. Yes, exactly.
Completely useless. It doesn't matter what you do. If there is no God, there's no meaning. It's pointless.
So many people believe nowadays, Mr. Solution, that if they accept the belief of God, that it is some sort of a oppression that they put on their life, that there's some sort of big rules that they've got to follow, that they can't step out of line and do something. And if you do, you'll have somebody like Brown Beasley that's going, now wait a minute, I thought you were a Christian. They don't want to do that. They were probably people that never minded their parents. They were probably rebellious, very rebellious as youngsters and as young adults. And they see, because I don't know about you, but I've always looked at God as like a heavenly father, an actual father figure of sorts. Does
that mean nurturing, by the way? Can a father be nurturing?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Really?
Well, I believe there's many times that he has brought me peace in times of, like when the ship is when we're out in the middle of a storm and I just go take a nap down in the bow, Mr. Solution. Where's Debbie? Where's Debbie? We're fixing to sink. She's taking a nap. Oh, ye.
Well,
little
you bring
thing.
up an interesting point. It doesn't mean that believers are ever perfect. Now, they should have a consciousness toward doing better and being moral, not wanting to kill, not even gossiping about people, maliciously. If my son were to come on, and I wish someone would put a call in to him or send up a smoke signal, I don't know what, and because he normally asks some pretty interesting questions. I don't know if he ever benefits from the questions, which is very interesting. We'll call that the Al Bundy syndrome. I know there's a message in here somewhere, but I'd be damned if I know what it is. Let's just call
we have
that
some interesting. We have
Al
some.
Bundy syndrome.
We have some. Shut up. We have some interesting comments in the chat room. Jonathan says, actually, Debbie, there were more suicides than murder in the Old West. For example, Boot Hill Cemetery in Tombstone is a perfect example of that. And then Once Pure says, I can tell you this, energy is eternal. Very good. All beings are energy, therefore all humanoids are. Exactly. Jonathan says, but in my life, I don't care what somebody else says or believes. I go with what is in my heart. And that's amazing. Thank you for those excellent comments that will benefit somebody out there and bring something to the airwaves that I'm proud of. And that's the people in my Spreaker chat room, some of the chat that's going on. Yeah.
What was the basis of the suicide? I understand currently, I think there are about 30,000 suicides per annum per year in the United States. But most of those suicides, I think, are either drug and or alcohol related. And, of course, there is some mental illness associated with it. But does the person elaborate as to why people were killing themselves at such an alarming rate?
I don't know. I want to walk through Boot Hill one day. That's on my bucket list. I think that's the stupidest words I've ever heard said in my life. That's on my things to do, which I could do.
Before you kick the bucket, huh?
Before I kick the bucket. And it's like, I don't know.
That's what that means.
Now,
that's what that means.
Yeah, I do know that. I've gone on a walk through Boot Hill Cemetery, sir, Jonathan, and from my understanding, there was a person on YouTube that did a video where he walked grave to grave to grave to grave to grave, and he was reading off, it says why they died. I don't remember reading that much about suicide. From where do you get your information, Jonathan, who is a sweetheart? I really like this guy a lot.
I don't recall that ever being said. I find that quite unusual, but it would be interesting to know his sources just as you are inquiring.
Right. That's interesting. I don't remember that. I mean, that would stick with me. Now, I know that I remember when they were walking through Boot Hill, they continued to say, here is so, I mean, she just literally went headstone to headstone, and it'll tell you why they died, and back then they just wrote, like, my mothers and fathers and my brothers are very formal to say, their date of birth and their, date of death. But back then they'd say, well, here lies Mr. Solution. He was a real smart guy that got killed by his wife. It's just like, that's the way they wrote on their tombstones. And I don't remember suicide. I'm not at all. Maybe I'm drawing a blank here, but the reason I bring up Tombstone is that was one of the heart of the Old West. That's where a lot of really excellent things went down over there. But there you go. It says Boot Hill Cemetery, a graveyard where they go. It's 11 minutes long, and they go pretty much. Well, they don't go to every one of them. There's one that's 4 minutes long, and the Clanton brothers are there. But I don't know. That's interesting that you say that. I don't know. Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I would tend to think that. I don't know. I know a lot of people commit suicide today, but I would think many of the people on Boot Hill were shot with a .44.
No, you're thinking of Les Moore. Here lies Les Moore, 4 slugs from a .44, no less, no more. I'm sorry.
Well, from a .44, that's a large caliber weapon.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Shots, actually.
Very powerful weapon. I have a 40.
Yeah.
Victor, do we have a 41 or a 44? We have a 44 Magnum and a 41 Magnum. We've got everything over here, Victor. We're packing over here.
I think they have. I think there was a 50 caliber. Imagine shooting that.
Don't even. My son lives right now for two things: for a a 2014 F-350 3/4 ton, which he will not be getting, and for a 50 caliber. Is that the one that you lay on your tummy and it has a little tripod and it's just like he wants a 50 caliber?
It is.
Yep, that's what Stephen
That's certainly
wants.
one of the ones. But at any rate, Debbie, if you want to put the reader on it, or whatever you want to do, we're at 25, Genesis 25, the death of Abraham.
I'm seeing lynched. I'm seeing hanged. I'm seeing all kinds of things. I am just perplexed with Jonathan saying that. So we're at Genesis what? I'm at Isaiah 58. Genesis 25. Is that what you said?
Yeah, 25.
Genesis 25. Let's get our groove on here and see what we've got going on. We are taking a walk for those people that are new. We're taking a walk through the book of Genesis for everybody and sort of, the death of Abraham. Oh, wow. Okay, here we go with Genesis 25 as read by Max McLean, and we'll be right back. Just y'all take a listen. Well, we're waiting. Any moment, please. It's spinning on me for some reason. It's open, but it's just kind of spinning around here for some reason.
Actually, Debbie,
Yes,
can
sir.
you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Actually, I'm sorry. I just updated myself. It's Genesis chapter 26.
I thought we had done this chapter, but I wasn't going to disrespect the my male counterpart here. Even if we were fixing to drive into the moon and you were driving the shuttle, I'd go, well, all right, if that's what you think we ought to do, I think we should turn left.
Hey, Debbie, I appreciate that, but I do stop and ask for direction.
Okay, let's try this. I don't know what's going on, guys. It's spinning. It's not wanting to play. I wonder what it... Oh, I bet I know what it is. I don't know. Well, rats... I wonder why it's not playing. It's just being ugly here. It was playing earlier today. I know that Heather and I listened to that Isaiah. Let me try it. Click. And it goes to the player. And boink. And it just sort of spins there. Well, I'll read it. I hate to do that. But it says, now there was a famine in the land besides the previous famine in Abraham's time. And Isaac went to Abimelech, king. I'm not going to be able to do these words. These names. I'll let my reader read it.
Okay, but that's Abimelech.
Abimelech. Let me let my reader read it. Just ignore the little numbers.
Now there was a famine in the land, besides the previous famine in Abraham's time, and Isaac went to Abimelech king of the Philistines in Gerar. The Lord appeared to Isaac and said, do not go down to Egypt, live in the land where I tell you to live. Stay in this land for a while, and I will be with you and will bless you. For to you and your descendants I will give all these lands and will confirm the oath I swore to your father Abraham. For I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and will give them all these lands, and through your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed. 5 Because Abraham obeyed me and did everything I required of him, keeping my commands, my decrees and my instructions. 6 So Isaac stayed in Gerar. When the men of that place asked him about his wife, he said, she is my sister, because he was afraid to say, she is my wife.
Wait a minute. Have we done this, sir? We're talking about...
Well, remember, this. I believe this happens multiple times. Remember, it happened with Abraham.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
That, like I told you, it was very quirky.
Huh?
They respected
murder. No, they respected marriage, but not murder.
No. They respected marriage. Murder was okay.
Wow. I didn't know that. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's go ahead and proceed.
When the men of that place asked him about his wife, he said, she is my sister, because he was afraid to say, she is my wife. He thought, the men of this place might kill me on account of Rebekah, because she is beautiful. 8 When Isaac had been there a long time, Abimelech king of the Philistines looked down from a window and saw Isaac caressing his wife Rebekah. 9 So Abimelech summoned Isaac and said, she is really your wife. Why did you say, she is my sister? Isaac answered him, because I thought I might lose my life on account of her. 10 Then Abimelech said, what is this you have done to us? one of the men might well have slept with your wife, and you would have brought guilt upon us. So Abimelech gave orders to all the people, anyone who harms this man or his wife shall surely be put to death. 12 Isaac planted crops in that land and the same year reaped 100-fold, because the Lord blessed him. 13 The man became rich, and his wealth continued to grow until he became very wealthy. 14 He had so many flocks and herds and servants that the Philistines envied him. 15 So all the wells that his father's servants had dug in the time of his father Abraham, the Philistines stopped up, filling them with earth. 16 Then Abimelech said to Isaac, "Move away from us, you have become too powerful for us." So Isaac moved away from there and encamped in the valley of Gerar, where he settled. 18 Isaac reopened the wells that had been dug in the time of his father Abraham, which the Philistines had stopped up after Abraham died, and he gave them the same names his father had given them. 19 Isaac's servants dug in the valley and discovered a well of fresh water there. 20 But the herders of Gerar quarreled with those of Isaac and said, "The water is ours." So he named the well Yesek, because they disputed with him. 21 Then they dug another well, but they quarreled over that one also, so he named Sitnah. 22 He moved on from there and dug another well, and no one quarreled over it. He named it Rehoboth, saying, "Now the Lord has given us room and we will flourish in the land." 23 From there he went up to Beersheba. 24 That night the Lord appeared to him and said, "I am the God of your father Abraham. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will bless you and will increase the number of your descendants for the sake of my servant Abraham." 25 Isaac built an altar there and called on the name of the Lord. There he pitched his tent, and there his servants dug a well. Meanwhile, Abimelech had come to him from Gerar, with Ahuzzath his personal advisor and Phicol the commander of his forces. 27 Isaac asked them, "Why have you come to me, since you were hostile to me and sent me away?" 28 They answered, "We saw clearly that the Lord was with you, so we said, there ought to be a sworn agreement between us and you. Let us make a treaty with you." 29 That you will do us no harm, just as we did not harm you but always treated you well and send you away peacefully. And now you are blessed by the Lord. 30 Isaac then made a feast for them, and they ate and drank. 31 Early the next morning the men swore an oath to each other. Then Isaac sent them on their way, and they went away peacefully. 32 That day Isaac's servants came and told him about the well they had dug. They said, "We've found water." 33 He called it Sheba, and to this day the name of the town has been Beersheba. When Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and also Basemath daughter of Elon the Hittite. 35 They were a source of grief to Isaac and Rebekah.
Now, back in those days, men were known by their word, and they would get together, several men, and they would say, "Let it be known from this day forward that I bequeath all of this land to Mr. Solution, and it is his to do what he wishes for." And that was all they needed. They didn't have to go to court and get all these deeds and all these notary publics and all this garbage. And it was just, you went on your word back then. That's what a lot of this is talking about. I mean, it's talking about a lot of other things, and another thing back then, these people, you have to remember, they were more like just traveling around from town to town, and they were in the desert, mind you, and everybody wanted to be by the Nile River, and of course Egypt had most of the control over the Nile, because you need to be by water. I mean, just like in the later periods, they wanted to be by a train depot. Well, they would start digging for water, and sometimes they would hit water, and that would be great because then they could have crops and things like that, and obviously water to drink. And that's interesting that Isaac to me, Mr. Solution, sounds like a very easy man to get along with. Sort of a handshaking, nice kind of a guy. I mean, that sounds kind of cheesy, but would you agree? Isaac just always seems like that to me.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of the biblical men, remember Moses was described as the meekest man on the earth, and of course Abraham was very genteel. He was very apparently easygoing, and I would agree with that. But you're right, they were nomadic, and they moved about, and they were in a desert land, and that's why, the emphasis is placed on water, although water is always important. I mean, those of us who live in SoCal, water, this is a desert area also, and fresh water is very, very important. We're always dependent. We get a lot of our water from Northern California, and we're dependent upon the snowfall, which provides a lot of the fresh water. So, yes, water is always going to be crucial. It's essential to life. That's one of the defining requirements for life itself is liquid water. So, absolutely. Go ahead, please.
Before I forget, Mr. Solution, do not even step 1 foot in the Pacific Ocean right now. You know what's going on, right? They had on New Year's Eve.
Not really.
On New Year's Eve, they had another accident at the plant in China, and it is absolutely they're keeping it quiet on the big four.
You mean Japan?
Yes, sir. What did I say? China. I'm sorry, but yeah, it's horrible. Fukushima emitted. This is really bad. I did a show on it last night, and what's going on is staggering, sir. It happened just one day ago. They had another big nuclear disaster, but they're keeping it quiet. And what I was going to tell you about, and since I'm very concerned about you and the people that you know out there, and of course Jewish Producer and everybody out there, it's basically there are alarming high levels of radiation on the beaches right now on the West Coast. For example, they've got starfish on the beaches right now that are showing up as just white blobs. They've got whales that have got sores on them, and they've got they look like white goo, the starfish. Bald eagles are dying in unprecedented proportions in Utah right now, and huge numbers of dead birds are dropping along the coastlines of Alaska with nothing but just broken open and bleeding. Seals and walruses in Alaska are losing hair and developing oozing sores. Sea lion deaths all up and down the California coastline. They're saying do not eat anything that is out of... You haven't had you? Have you? Any seafood?
Well, no, and I appreciate that because someone just today was telling me that one of the persons I was riding near the ocean today, and there's a good bike path, and they were bringing this very thing to my attention. But I'm glad you're re-emphasizing it because that had faded away a little bit. But go ahead, please.
Well, it just happened. This happened just like I said on New Year's Eve. It says one of the experts out there said the ocean is dead. He journeyed from Japan to San Francisco just several days ago and said that all he usually saw teams of wildlife. He saw one whale that was rolling helplessly up on the surface with a tumor on its head, and it was very, very sad. There was nothing else except nothing. He said he was used to seeing turtles, dolphins, sharks, flurries of feeding birds, and after 3,000 nautical miles, there was not one thing alive to be seen. And of course, this is the aftermath of the tsunami that hit 2 years ago, but something happened, and they had a huge thing, a big accident, a big disaster again, just like I say, 4 days ago. And it's hit San Francisco worse than ever. You can go out there with a Geiger counter and stand by the beach, and when the surf hits, it'll go all the way up to 126. The little thingy, the little radiation. It's unbelievable. They say that
the danger zone.
They say don't even go in the water. Don't even wade in the water, and for God's sake, don't eat anything out of the water if you can find anything alive. Anyway, but they're saying that it's called cesium. It's CESIUM. Cesium. According to the National Oceanic, the total amount of cesium 137 that has been released into the Pacific Ocean from the Fukushima is 100 times greater than the amount released into the oceans by Chernobyl. But now, see,
Wow.
they're keeping it quiet because they don't want to. They don't. I mean, I think it's sad that they're
Panic everybody.
exactly, which is absolutely ridiculous to me. They've got a map, sir, where they've got specialists as we speak this moment that are monitoring radiation levels, and you can see that as far west as the Rocky Mountains, and it's already into New Mexico. It's the red level, which is the RadCon. The way they do it, it's called the RadCon thing, and it's already in the red. The most of the West Coast is black. It's got the three circle. It's got it's like an engine running or something. It's the radiation signal for nuclear things,
Okay.
and it's already
Okay.
it's really, really bad. They're basically saying that the West Coast is fried.
Well, you're talking about both ocean and airborne, apparently.
Yes.
If you say it's in did you say Arizona?
Yes,
That would mean
absolutely,
it's airborne.
because of the sea mist. It comes out of the sea mist, and
Yeah, I get you.
I did a show on it last night.
Wow, that is. Well, they should tell us. I know they were monitoring that, and I'm just hoping, just based on the chemistry, although I don't know this for sure, but the salt in the ocean and the amount of ocean water there is, I'm hoping it's able to dilute.
Nope.
But if they keep spilling it, see, you're
Sir,
talking
they
about
said they said that there's enough radiation in the Pacific Ocean right now that it would take a century for it to perhaps. Yeah, it's very.
To dissolve.
Do your research. Do your research. Google search it. Look at it. There's websites that have got it out. But they didn't. Do you know they're not even reporting it on the news? I mean, that's how bad it is because they just don't want. I know why. I know why they're not doing it, but I reserve that opinion to myself.
Oh, you can't tell?
Oh, I don't know. It sounds too lane brain, but I don't know. I just think that it is part of an undercover thing. I don't know. I don't want to say. But sir, look at the satellite images. This will make you sick. The satellite images of the ocean where they can pick up the radiation spillage, like it's like an oil spill, and it's scary.
Right.
It is scary, scary, scary.
Well, you know what you're telling me, thank you for that, because I guess it's not even safe to ride because, right near the ocean on the bike path, because, you breathe deeply normally as you're going through that area. And I have some remedies, and I'm certainly going to load up on them, but this thing with radiation, I don't know, this will probably put a bad taste in many people's thought processes toward radiation because the waste is always a problem. The radioactive waste, they were thinking about shipping it to Nevada and putting it in some sort of special containers and, putting it underground. But Japan apparently should be denied the, having new. I mean, given this particular situation, Japan is on an unstable landmass. There's no doubt about that. That wall was supposed to be there to block waves. But what happened is when that earthquake occurred, because there was an earthquake that triggered the tsunami, that wall just shifted. I mean, it was like nothing. That earthquake just took that wall out. And so what I'm saying is Japan is inherently too unstable to have that sort of dangerous radiation that could influence other people. If it would just stay there, which would be bad enough. But from what you're telling me now, it's and the Pacific, if I'm not mistaken, it bleeds into other oceans too.
Yep.
I know at the
but
at the southern end,
the tide
Panama.
the tide goes north pretty much all the time. But I understand what you're saying. Did you know that they found duct tape being used to hold these reactors to fix these? Yeah, it's true. I swear. Are you kidding me? I mean, I'm like, gosh. I mean, I know sometimes over there maybe they don't value life as much as some people do. I don't know. It's just,
Wait a minute. I thought Japan was considered really a Western country, even though it's in the East.
Right.
I mean, they were considered very technologically advanced.
I
And
might
duct
believe
tape,
that.
by the way, from what I know about Mythbusters,
Don't you even go
is a
there.
miracle.
Don't you even
It's
go
a
there.
miracle tape.
I
But okay, I know
No,
what you're saying.
I know what you're
but
saying.
This is so horrific. I'm just making a little joke about it because
No, you're right.
it's scary,
It's very scary.
That's disastrous.
My wife, my husband and I laugh at how I can't tear duct tape. There is some sort of a thing, some sort of trick to this stuff that you get on what you want, and then you just go, and Victor just goes, rip, and just rips it right off where it needs to be, and I just like, and I'm not getting the scissors out and fighting it. I just can't do it for some strange reason, but
So you
yeah.
have to know how to tear it, and it is a miracle tape, by the way. I use it all the time, and it's very good for a lot of purposes.
It
But,
says that the
so-
rain and snow recently have washed away the anti-corrosive agent which was applied around the clamping bolts, which reduced the sealing effect. And then, like I said, it was kaboom the other day, and something went willy wong. So, yeah.
But I listened to that a little bit, Debbie. But I think I think the real problem is the instability of that area. That's considered the Pacific Rim is considered the rim of fire. So we're talking earthquake, volcanoes.
I know. Let's
It's
put a nuclear power plant there, right? It's a good idea.
Say again?
Idiots. Let's put a nuclear power plant out there, right on the fault line. You
That
freaking
was a bad idea. I
idiots.
mean, I don't know who approved. That was inherently, stupid. It would have been better had they used fossil fuels. Now,
I'm sorry.
just don't know. I think if you say it takes 100 years, I mean, from what you're saying, that could wipe out a large part of the ocean's food source. We depend on the ocean a lot for harvesting food, and particularly Japan and the Asian countries, because they're so heavily dependent on fish.
Wow, I cannot imagine what's going on those boats out there, those ships, those ones that pull in the crab and the fish, just the fish, the big. I don't know what's going on with that, but it says record outdoor radiation levels were monitored that could kill in 20 minutes were detected at Fukushima.
Wow. Well, they say necessity is the mother of invention.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to have to come up with some sort of bacteria or something that consumes radiation.
Well,
and
I think it's
converts it
interesting
into,
that our government purchased something like a million some odd dollars worth of anti-radiation drugs. Serum Friday.
Yeah, but that's just that's important to inoculate us or to reverse the effects of radiation contamination. I guess it's a type of decontaminating agent.
What can you
So
do?
we're going to have to learn to produce that in large quantities and put it in the ocean, because if the whales are dying and the marine life, well, that's not good.
No, it's not. Well, I did have this gentleman called in last night, and I pretty much trust him. He's a pretty smart guy. And if you want to listen to I go pimping my show here, but if you want to listen to my show from last night, it's where it's discussed after about skip the first 20 minutes or so. We were just playing I was playing music and things along those lines, and then he calls in with, with all the stuff. So I don't know.
I'll catch up on that because. That's important. I do consume fish, and it's important to me where it is derived. And this is just a new situation that, and you would think now they wouldn't distribute fish that is radiation contaminated. I mean, one would think that they wouldn't, but there again, who knows?
Well, it's obviously come back to to the forefront here, but there's lots of, if you look for it in the deep web or whatever, you'll find it. Just 4 days ago, 1 day ago, 11 hours ago, 4 hours ago, they're reporting it, but the big ones aren't for some reason. I don't know what goes through the mind of those people that own Fox and MSNBC and whatever. I don't know what goes through their minds, why they wouldn't do this. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know what our relationship right now is with Japan. I don't know. I really don't know,
Well, it's pretty good. I mean, but look here, little babies are the ones that, well, I'm sure they are more vulnerable. And it would be great if parents knew this because, baby DNA being in its formative stage, in other words, developing stage, makes them much more.
Yes, yes.
They are much more sensitive.
Last week we were at
to-
yeah, you're right. We were at the emergency room, and I ordered my daughter a chest X-ray. I'm one of those kind of mothers that are like the doctor. When I walk in there, I'm like, I want a chest X-ray on him, one on her, and I want this. And she was like, Mom, and I said, and I want a pregnancy test because she goes, no, I'm not pregnant. And I said, we're not going to do that. So they went and drew her blood and sent it down to the lab and came back and said, no. And they go, and this nurse goes, smart mom. And I'm like, because,
Okay.
If you are pregnant and you get an X-ray, which is radiation, what we're talking about, you will fry.
Right.
You will fry that fetus, and it will come out with just twisted. Just there's no telling. Maybe with 2 arms, or it's horrible. I mean, I witnessed it in real life with a friend of mine who went and got a bunch of X-rays. But no, my daughter, I ordered a blood test to be pulled, which they can tell pregnancy after just 1 day if the HGC it automatically goes into the woman's bloodstream. The human I call it the human creation hormone. So yeah, backing
Right.
up.
We're over radiated anyway. If you fly a lot, that's radiation. I notice generally when I go to the dentist and have a full mouth X-ray, they actually put that lead covering over your torso to protect you from radiation. So, and the pilots and the flight attendants were balking, and they were bucking. They were resisting having to go through that additional radiation because they get radiated a lot. They,
Be careful.
Just being in a plane itself.
Mm-hmm. Be careful when you come over the
exposed.
Oklahoma border into Texas, because you're going to get zapped at the border. They're zapping everybody. They're looking for the 18-wheelers that come across. They X-ray the cars. They're looking for big stashes of money, which you can detect real easily, supposedly. Because every time we stayed at this casino not too long ago, and we were right over the border where we stayed, and then over the border was the casino, obviously. It's a huge casino, beautiful casino. And every time we got back to the room, our room key, which was a credit card thing, didn't work. And she goes, "Oh, that's because right there at the border, they undo the magnification, the whatever on your room key." And I thought, well, I'm glad.
Yeah, they demagnetized it, I guess.
Glad I'm not pregnant.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, glad I'm not pregnant. I thought, that's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
That is terrible. Checking the board on Blog Talk. We're holding our own over there. We're doing just fine. I'm sorry about the reader. I don't know what happened to the reader. It'll be fine, though. It'll come back. But I hope that what I was telling you about is valid. I mean, it was told to me, and I did a little bit of research on it, and it seemed like everything matched up that the gentleman was talking about. He seemed rather alarmed too. I sort of subscribe to a little bit of Illuminati mindset in certain situations. So I don't know. I've got but do your research, Mr. Solution, please, because I know you're always out there.
That's good. No, Debbie, I appreciate that because that's good, current, and relevant information. And I think anyone who is near the ocean or even not near the ocean, because if it becomes airborne, we may need to look for that. What did you say the remedy is?
I didn't say what the remedy is. What is the remedy?
You said there's an antidote.
Oh, yeah. Now, I'm wrong. ABC Online has picked up
Okay, I'll check it out.
Yeah, some stuff. But
we may need that anti-radiation anecdote.
Just be real careful that you don't eat anything like, from
fish, marine life, and don't go in the ocean, for heaven's sake.
Absolutely.
It's kind of cool out here now, so I think fewer people are in the ocean, but I hope they get this message because it's certainly not safe.
It says that potassium...
Hey, you're doing a great job. Please proceed, because let me tell you something. The more of us, the Bible is one thing, but it only comes alive in us. The more of us are interested, the Word of God can just lay dormant, and unless we make it alive, it doesn't benefit us the way it could otherwise. So, and that's our responsibility. So, I love your getting off into it, and also whatever questions we may have. Go ahead, please.
I love the way back in the days of these gentlemen that they were so ceremony. So they had ceremonies. They would pitch a tent. They would sometimes they would build an altar. And call on the name of the Lord. That was a big deal for them to do that whenever they found, these people were like you said, they were nomadic, and they had babies and children and wives and brothers and lots of people that were depending, we're tired, we're hungry, are we there yet? And so when they found some place that was suitable with water and what have you, they were very thankful, and they sort of somewhat claimed it, so to speak. And in fact, where he was calling Sheba, where at the very last part it says, that day Isaac's servants came and told him about the well that they had found. Oh, Isaac, we got water. And he said, okay, so he called it, we will call this Sheba. And to this very day, that is the exact town called Beersheba. It looks like beer, like let's go have a beer, Beersheba. And that's where that happened. And the actual, I believe, even where the well was found is actually still there. And I just love the Holy Lands. And, it's funny that whenever Abimelech came with, when he came from Gerar with his people, which was Ahusath and his personal advisors, and Philcol, the commander of his army, went up to Isaac, and Isaac just panics and says, why are you here? You were so mean to me, ugly earlier, and sent me away because of the thing about my sister. It would be like if Vic and I walked up, they'd go, oh, that's my sister, that's not my wife. Because if Victor said I was his wife, being, somewhat attractive, they would, of course, kill him and take me. Because back then, I don't know if beautiful women were, I think, because they were good to bear children with, have good bloodlines or whatever. And so he was perplexed at why these gentlemen who had just recently, I've got an incoming call from Deshawn. Hang on just a second. Yes, Deshawn.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. I just want to let y'all know that you and Mr. Solution, as always, are doing a fabulous job. And I hate being away from y'all so long because I missed you from the time that I was off on the internet. And I just want to let you know I was on the News Guys show yesterday. He told me about what's happening. And I thank you for calling the Spreaker National Guard on me, because that showed that you really care. And I really love that you care. And I was like, that warmed my heart.
Okay, now did I called what? The Spreaker National Guard? What did you say?
The Spreaker National Guard.
Oh, about the radiation, correct?
No, about when I was gone for...
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I was just in a panic.
Thank you.
I was in a state of panic. I was posting it here, Facebook, Twitter, Skype, Spreaker.
I know, and the news guy was telling me, and then David was telling me, and I was like, oh, my Spreaker wife care for me, and I was like, I was about to cry. I mean, I didn't know if anybody would care that much about me. I mean,
Deshawn, if I didn't hear from you, I told News Guy one night, I was sick at my stomach over it. I said, the only thing I know to do is just fly up there where I think he lives, or down there, and just start roaming the streets. I don't know what else to do.
I would have gave you my address. I would have gave you where I live. I would have gave you my cross street. I mean, come on. There is Spreaker family. Come on.
Now, did you say that the News Guy was talking about the radiation thing?
No, actually, he was talking about me not
Oh,
being
okay.
online,
Okay.
and he was interviewing because a lot of people was worried, especially you and also Jonathan was worried
Jonathan.
about
Mhm.
me.
I got an email from Jonathan saying, Debbie, have you heard from Deshaun? You were gone for too long. Don't do that anymore.
Blame it on AT&T. What happened was they knocked me off on a Saturday before I was about to go on the
Oh,
air.
yeah, that's what they do. They're idiots. They've got my phone cut off and demanding $800 from me right
I
now.
heard that yesterday. I was so mad. I was like,
Ugh,
don't do that. First you knocked off me offline, and then you had the nerve to
I know. They're
get me
stupid.
started about AT&T. Now I'm really
Yeah,
mad.
yeah, they're dootses. I don't like them anymore. So thank you for the call and you're welcome. Now I was right in the middle of something. Did you want to hang with us, or was that all you needed, my dear, or what? But
I
you're
just wanted to let you know that I was okay and safe, and I will listen on air. I will listen to you and Mr. Solutions. And I know you were talking about the tsunami that happened. That was big news last year. There was all they talked about on CNN, and they did very, very extensive coverage of that. But I would just want to let you know that I'm alive, and your Spreaker husband is doing well.
Would you like to say hi to Mr. Solution?
Oh yes,
Yeah, I was going to say hi to Deshaun, and hi, and thank you for the compliment, Deshaun.
oh, anytime. And did you hear what I was talking about doing my rant to protect Debbie's Bible show? I said that I would, if you had a church, if you was a pastor of a church, I would join your church and I would go to your church in a heartbeat.
Oh, well, thank you.
And I mean it 100%. And I was playing that on my show, and I was letting Debbie know because Debbie Bible show is the real deal, and it is the real McCoy.
All right, I was
Well,
on.
yeah, we're doing it just out of the liberty and freedom and the desire to, edify and encourage people who may not have any other connection to Scripture, because there are a lot of people that are isolated from it, maybe, and this is just a philanthropic outreach, and so we're glad that you appreciate it.
Right.
Well, back in those days, I'm sorry, I was just going to go ahead and continue. Is that all for right now?
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you, I am unable to go on BDR, not BDR, but my WBDR's Spreaker page to do broadcast because I got 155 hours worth of shows, and they want me to knock them all down until I get 10 hours. So it's like, I got 155 hours worth of good broadcast, and then you want me to knock them down to 10 hours so I could just broadcast. So I am only on Chill Radio, and I wanted to know where you could find your husband in case you wanted to listen to some of my shows.
Okay, I'll do that. We're working on something behind your back. Me and David are cooking up something for you. So just keep your shirt on. We'll see if we can get you fixed up with something else, okay?
I sure will, sweetheart, and I love you, and thanks again for calling the National Guard, and I love you.
You're welcome. So one thing that I loved about another thing I loved about the people back then is whenever they had something occur, they called it such because that was the meaning of the word. Like, for example, Moses, who was drawn from the water, the word osmosis means to come from water. And whenever it says in verse 19, why am I Mr. Solution all of a sudden tonight, Mr. Solution? What, are you taking the night off or what? But he does.
I'm just listening.
Okay.
But I would advise you, though, Debbie, you remember when we talked about the legality, they were very conscious of land boundaries. And remember, the guy wanted to give Abraham the land to bury Sarah. And Abraham would not accept it as a gift. He insisted on paying for it, and
that's a very smart thing to do because you don't want to feel too much. I mean, my father said,
obligated.
Bingo, don't ever accept a lot of gifts from people because then you'll feel obligatory to them, and always say, no, thank you, I can't accept that, whatever.
And the witnesses stood as just that. They were the document, and they did this in what they call at the gate.
That is where business was conducted.
Absolutely. I think that is the coolest thing in the world. Whenever you entered a city, you were stopped at the gate, just like in like the federales when you go to Cancun or Acapulco or something. You almost go through a little what do you call that, a border patrol type thing, and you pay the taxes, and they say, what are you doing here? Who are you? They take inventory of everybody, unlike what we do around here. I mean, it's just, hell, who knows who's going over these borders around here, but I think that's great. Now, the one thing that confused me, and you might want to help me clear this up, is when they first showed up after Abraham died, obviously Isaac got moved into power, so to speak, and he seemed to start off by having problems with Abimelech because, as you know, it says in the earlier verses that that Isaac had started planting crops and such, blah, 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 blah. And then they came along and filled up with dirt Abraham's well for some reason. Now, I don't know if that was something the Philistines did. And I thought, I wonder why they did that. And then Abimelech says in verse 16, he said to Isaac, "Move away from us. You have become too powerful." And I'm wondering if Abimelech was like, "Wait a minute, you're getting too much attention from the Philistines. Get away from us. We don't want any problems." I'm wondering if that's the way he was thinking, because I always try to get inside somebody's mind, even if it's a biblical character. And I'm wondering if he said that, say, "Get away from me. You're getting too much," because you didn't want to rock the Philistines. Those were the mean boys. Those were the bad boys. And what do you think about that?
Well, yeah, especially since they had contracted out those giants. Well, I guess we're not at the time of Goliath. But now, I just want to clarify something. If you notice in verse 1, it says, "And Isaac went to Abimelech, king of the Philistines, in Gerar." Mm-hmm. So there's that connection there, right?
Right. There was a famine in the land. That's the first word. There was a famine in the land.
Right.
And
the
Isaac...
famine was the driving force. And, of course, they were shifting back and forth because if you think about it, without rain, it was, now some cultures did have advanced irrigation techniques but famine, these people were pretty much at the mercy of nature. We are too, not quite as much, but yeah, the famine was the motivating, was the driver. And there seemed to have been a little skirmish here and there. Abraham was given the land, but I think we're going to see this unfold. There were people occupying that land. Mm-hmm. And so Abraham just kind of, based on the hospitality of the occupying occupants and also the prevailing conditions, such as, drought, and this kind of thing, those were the motivators for them to, really be nomadic, as we were saying before.
Well, and I think I think that some people in the Bible had little personality quirks, just like we do today. Nobody was born perfect, and I when I read this chapter in Genesis, and I look at this person named Abimelech, the king of the Philistines, of course. He seems to sway a little back and forth on some things. I think he was just sort of not had the best advisors or something because, he then goes on to say, "She's your wife? Why did you say that?" Blah, blah, blah. And then he says, "What have you done to us? One of my men might have slept with your wife and you would have brought guilt upon us." And then he gives a big order out to the land saying, "Anyone who harms this man, Isaac, or his wife will be put to death," and invites him to stay. Stay here. No, pitch camp. Stay here. It's a nice place. And then, and then before that, he was just about ready to, to jump down his throat. He sort of went back and forth. And then I don't find that hard to believe. There was nowhere did it say that perfection was in all these characters in the Bible. They had personality quirks and little things just like we do today. They were just humans like us. And would you?
Oh, absolutely.
Would you
absolutely.
agree?
But now you did see this is not our first introduction to this particular situation. We saw this with Isaac's father, Abraham, regarding Sarah. So within this land, and I think I shared this before, but since you bring it up, these people would, first of all, they respected marriage, ostensibly. They respected marriage. But now, to get a beautiful woman, which was considered a type of currency, they would slay the man that was her husband, and that would free her up. That's just like in the animal kingdom.
Did you ever think that maybe there was just some real ugly women back then? I mean, to have a beautiful one come along, it was like, kill him, take her, kill him. I mean, it's just like, that's the only thing I can think.
I'm sorry, repeat that. I didn't.
I said,
if there wasn't a beautiful woman, there would really be no issue.
Well, I'm saying maybe there was a grave shortage of what people call beautiful women, and when they saw one, they were like, take her, kill him. We don't give a crap. We want her, get her. Because that would be the only reason they would do that. I mean, if beautiful women were everywhere, they don't all look like Disney's Aladdin. The girl in Aladdin, but I wonder if that was maybe the problem. Thank you, Deshaun. It's very sweet. I wonder if that was, maybe they weren't that attractive or something, or what? I mean.
Well, that's a good question. Well, there's a general distribution, unless it's just. That's a good question, by the way. I like that. Women are women. I mean, unless there's a lot of, I guess, what you would call inbreeding. And that could be positive or negative as far as beauty goes. But there's going to be attractive women, and then women are able to use makeup also. But there's the exotic aspect, or what's the other, the word?
I know what you're trying to say. I know what you're trying to say.
I'll think of it in a moment. But there is the...
they look very...
Xena.
Yes,
I
exactly.
think the word is... Mm-hmm. It's xena, like we have xenophobia. It's fear of the exotic, as it were. But there are travelers. They knew she was like a new woman. The hot woman comes into town, and of course the men that were in power would want the hot woman, and. With women, and it's true today, just as it was then, beauty is a type of currency that a woman can use. It's a type of power that women have, and men recognize it, just like men have the power of wealth. If a man has wealth, you see the fat, aging, bald guy, and he's with the hot chick. Mm-hmm. Well, you can just imagine what's going on there. And so it's kind of a quid pro quo. But, we saw this with Isaac's father. And there was a running rule. Now, we're not getting it all here, but if we go ahead and lift it out, as they say, exegete it, we can. And that is that they would kill the man to free up the woman. That's what they would do. And that's why Isaac says here, in verse 9, excuse me. Mm-hmm. When Abimelech summoned Isaac, now see, this is self-righteous crap on the part of Abimelech, if you don't mind my saying so. Mm-hmm. He's very one-sided. It says in verse 9, so Abimelech summoned Isaac and said, she is really your wife. And now he gets really self-righteous. Why did you say she's your sister? I mean, he's, on his righteous high horse. And then Isaac answered him, because I thought
going to kill me.
I might lose my life on account of her. And then, so Abimelech continues in verse 10. He says, then Abimelech said, what is this you've done to us? He says, one of the men might well have slept with your wife.
Wow.
And What he's saying there.
You would have brought guilt upon us. Are you kidding me? Wow.
But notice what he's saying. Let's just go back just for a moment. He says, one of the men might well have slept with your wife, but that's only because we hadn't killed you.
God. I like the way he goes in.
You.
You would have brought guilt
and you
upon
would have brought guilt upon us.
Excuse me? You
So
would have
this
brought
is
guilt
like
on
a
yourself.
twisted, how should I say, contorted stretch.
Attitude, absolutely. Think about it. But then look what he says in the next one.
People Abimelech is. We would have no problem offing you, but if you trick us to say she's your sister, and so they have like this weird righteousness, this queer, nonsensical righteousness. Yeah, we would have killed you had you told us she's your wife, and we would have taken her. But why didn't you tell her? Why didn't you tell us she's your wife? See, that's
we
would have murdered you had we known she was your wife.
That's the way you could say it.
Tell us she was your wife?
You could say it backwards.
This is silly.
You could say it backwards and say, what's going on? You know, we would have murdered you and slept with her. Are you kidding me? I mean, that's a little bit crazy. But look what he says in the next sentence, sir.
Yes.
And it's complete different. And then Abimelech said, what is it? Oh, excuse me. And then 11 says, so Abimelech gave orders to all the people, anyone who harms this man or his wife shall be put to death.
Now, let me tell you what probably happened here is he checked the record. Because remember, God came to, I believe, and if I'm not mistaken, Abimelech is probably a title like president. Right. So I think the guy last time when he dealt with Abraham, and I would have to just flip back there and cross-reference, God came to him in a dream and told him, you're a dead man. Now, however God impressed that upon him, he did. He told him, you're literally dead if you don't rectify this thing. So presumably Abimelech checked the record, and he saw what an egregious violation that was. And, of course, I think he may have been discovering who Isaac was.
Wow.
I don't know.
That's very good. Abimelech was the son of Gideon, which Abimelech's name can be best interpreted as my father the king. Abimelech is a name claiming the inherited right to rule, was also common of the Philistine kings. You're right.
Right, like president.
Like Pharaoh.
Yeah, okay, that too, yes.
Right.
And so he did a little bit of checking the record, which wasn't that old, and I'm sure there were people who knew what had happened. And then he issues this huge order in verse 11. So Abimelech gave orders to all the people, anyone who harms this man or his wife shall surely be put to death. So it it took a little bit of persuasion, should I say, a little bit of encouragement for Abimelech to realize what trouble he could get into if he messed with Isaac, if he mistreated Isaac or did him wrong. Now, you may ask the question, and if you don't, I shall. Why wasn't Isaac more assured? Isaac had been given the promise by his father. Apparently, God had spoken to Isaac. It says in verse 2, the Lord appeared to Isaac and said, do not go down to Egypt. Live in the land where I tell you to live.
Right.
So, yeah. So there were these sources here. So one would ask, why was Isaac fearful? Why was he scared? Because he manifestly expresses fear.
Well, because he knew.
Well,
he knew what happened before. He knew what happened to his old man. I mean, he remembered. He probably had been told stories of how, tread very lightly and carry a big stick when you're hanging around these parts.
Understood.
Understood. But the same thing applies. This was a big issue. This was not a small issue. This was an issue of national impact. And we see that from Abimelech. And remember, Abimelech is a sovereign. He's not just a president, even though that name is a title. He has absolute rule for all intents and purposes. So for him to issue an edict along these particular lines, it has to be something of a grandiose and severe nature. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so when it says, so Abimelech gave orders to all the people. But my point again is Isaac was fearful. He could have read this story, which I'm sure he did, about Abraham.
Right.
And I think this goes to what you were saying. Isaac was human, and we see a manifestation of his humanness in terms of lack of belief. Now, did they follow basically what God told them to do? Yes.
Absolutely.
But, you know, there were ripples along the way, for lack of a better word. But you would think Isaac would have said, "This is my wife," at the outset. But he was scared.
Yep.
He said in verse 9, "I thought I might lose my life."
Because he
Now,
had a, I mean,
how
not,
can
I'm
he
sure,
lose his life,
but because,
and he's the heir to the promise that Almighty God has made.
because
right?
he had a little hot tata of a wife. I mean, back then it must have been perfectly normal for people to say, "Don't marry, a good-looking woman. Marry the dog of the family or something, because if not, you're going to get, you can lose your head. Off with his head over her." I mean, I'm not trying to be.
Don't admit that she's your wife.
Well, yeah, but what if you get caught lying? I mean, I don't know if they didn't obviously have a database they could go and check. I don't think that, were marriages kept in a logbook or something? Does anybody know, or no?
It was local. In fact, marriage, that's one of the arguments, not to get off into that, but that's one of the arguments that the gay movement is arguing, is that government is too invested for the wrong reason in the personal relationship between a man and a woman. In other words, in other words, two people, because it would be, two people of the same sex. But what they're saying is, their basic fundamental argument is that people have the right to contract a relationship between themselves, people who have reached the age of majority, and the government can't come in arbitrarily and regulate that.
Very
and
good.
So they
Perfect.
have court cases that they're going to. But to answer your question directly, is that it was a community thing. I mean, people knew. Well, now it's a national thing because everybody knows.
I think
and they have pride.
I think that
And
the
I'm
government.
Sure they were,
I think that the government got involved in marriage to make a little kickback on everyone. They're sitting around thinking one day, we could charge $65 for every marriage. Think about this, license. We had done like a fishing license. You know what I'm talking about? And think about the money we could get. Oh, I get it.
Well, I'm going to raise you one. I'm going to accept what you just said, and I'm going to raise you 100,000. The real money maker, and anyone can do this, if you go down to your local library, and I'm thinking of 3M when I laughed there. But at any rate, if you go to your local library and you look up the family law section, you will see that in order to qualify to be married, it's maybe 1 or 2 pages at the most. But divorce, you have a voluminous
It's an act of God.
Compilation.
It's an act of
and
God.
so really the money is made in divorce,
Exactly.
not marriage.
Exactly. And,
Yeah.
They say cheaper to keep her, but I don't know. I think that's sad. I think it's not cheap to keep her. I mean.
Well, let me just tell you something. I've spoken to a lot of women, and it's no surprise. And I really have a taste for fish, but I'm balancing it. I just strong desire for fish,
Oh, no.
but I'm going to suppress it. I've spoken to quite a number of professional women, and this is just anecdotal, but you can see it borne out in the statistics. A lot of women who have assets are very tepid about, entering into a state contractual, and that's what it is. A marriage license is actually it's a business. It's a business arrangement.
Yeah.
So I mean, they see the fallout, and I'm saying both men and women are reticent to enter into that contract because they know. Let me tell you. And I was just reading, I believe, on Yahoo Finance, and they were talking about the things that promote wealth and the things that don't promote wealth. And particularly, and they made it into a joke. They say the only people who can afford divorce are really wealthy people and poor people.
Exactly.
Middle-class people can't afford a divorce because it will destroy them.
Yep. You're right. It destroyed a lot of people.
Wait a minute. And you know something else? When I heard that, I thought about you because I remember you said something once, and I knew you were kidding, but you said it. You said you would take Victor for everything he has.
If I found out he had an affair, if I found out he had an affair 10 years ago, I would tie him to the whipping post for a while. He's listening.
But see, the thing of it is, the law, particularly in most states, it does give the woman the right to, in essence, and it's never half. I hear people talk about half. It's not half, because if the guy is forced to pay her half, which oftentimes, now he can't maintain a separate household, and he's got to pay her attorney fees, hint, 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 attorney fees,
child support,
that destroys most middle class.
Oh, absolutely. Couples. Absolutely. Whenever my brother got divorced in 1990, he was like what you were saying, middle class. He had to give up one half of his, what do they call it? His pension.
That was, 1K?
Yeah. There's gone. In one stroke of the pen, it was gone. And then he had to give up the house that he had bought.
And what many people have to do, and this hasn't happened to me, but I know about it. Many times they have to buy the other person out. So that means they have to take a second mortgage.
Mm-hmm. He had to deed it over. He had to deed it over to my sister-in-law, and then came. I mean, he basically walked out with his clothes and his shaving kit, and went and got an apartment that was free by virtue of the fact that he parked his cruiser out there, his Dallas Police Department cruiser. He had a take-home squad car, which is very valuable for a DPD officer because you can get free apartments. And he had a beautiful apartment in North Dallas, but still, he didn't have his lawnmower, his bye-bye dog, bye-bye fence, bye-bye. And he was just
Don't forget the children.
Oh, we're not even talking about child support. And God help you if you don't pay child support. They'll string you up here in Texas. And it's ridiculous what he had to do. He literally, like you said, Mr. Solution, was just stripped of everything. And he was just like, what happened? And I said, I hope it was worth it. That's why I told Victor, I said, that thing better be lined in gold. Because, I mean,
legally bankrupt, and that's what happens when many people go through a divorce. They are legally bankrupt. Now, this is something I try to direct people with a double-digit IQ, and I know 3M has probably a triple-digit IQ.
Be nice.
But these are the. I was really clearing my throat then. These are the kind of things that would be much more fruitful to discuss. And I mean for the purpose of getting clarity and also for the purpose of erecting solutions. Because as I speak to you and as I speak generally, even though I enjoy talking, I just don't talk for the sake of talking. That's not why I talk. I'm always solution-oriented, so I want solutions.
Mm-hmm.
practical solutions.
Hence the
doable
name,
solutions.
Mr. Solution. The first night I met you, I said, "Why do you call yourself Mr. Solution?" And you said those exact words. You said, "Because I'm a solution-oriented person," and I was like very impressed with that. And
Right. Well, thank you. And just most people are not solution oriented. In fact, a lot of people do nothing but nurture problems, and that's the reason their problems are so plentiful. But at any rate, you don't want to get a divorce. Like the guy said, if you're middle class, you've got to stay with your partner. Now, this is also repeated or recapitulated in The Millionaire Next Door. They say a divorce is the most destructive, an alien thing to the wealth for a middle class person. If you're wealthy, and I've often said, a wealthy person, it doesn't even matter whether they have a prenup or not, because they can weather a divorce. And obviously, a poor person, and I'm not bagging on poor people, but that's what the article was saying. Well, a poor person doesn't have anything, and of course, there's nothing to lose for the most part.
oh yeah, we would get divorce cases in the family law attorney that I worked for, not too terribly long ago, and I would have to do the initial intake interview, and I would be on the phone after they left. We got a whopper. We've got 3 sheets of assets, brother. And if you're like, ooh, nice. Yeah, we got boats, we got houses, we got lake houses, we've got, and that's when it really can get nasty. But a lot of men just sign the dotted line and run, especially, and I'll tell you something, where men make the biggest mistake, Mr. Solution, is when they piss that woman off and have an affair that she finds out about, because and it is, no truer words were spoken than hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. They will eat you up. They will.
Well, what a guy should do, and I don't promote cheating.
Be real careful.
I think, people should actually honor their commitment. But I think, and I differentiate a public prenuptial agreement from a personal prenuptial agreement. And this is obviously not legal advice. We're just discussing this for educational purposes. The thing is that the state marriage license is a prenuptial agreement. It's just that most people don't read the law supporting the marriage license.
I bet I never told you that Vic and I are not even legally married. Did I tell you about that? We went and got our marriage license on October 2nd, and we got married November 9th, and it says on the back that you have to get married for it to be valid within 30 days, and that was not within 30 days. We're not even married. No, I'm joking.
I'm not sure if you read, it's Texas. Wait a minute.
No, it damn sure.
Okay.
It says
Texas is a common law marriage state?
Yeah, it's a community property, not also common law. But anyway, it does state.
That's what
on the back it says this certificate is valid for 30 days. 30 days.
Excuse me?
It says this certificate, this license is valid for 30 days. It must be signed by a registered, man of the cloth, what have you, within 30 days. Yeah. And we did it on the 37th day. So anyway.
So now your point is you're not legally.
I'm heading to
I knew that was going to make you come in here the minute I said it. She's out there listening in the other room. What did you say?
I'm going to Vegas.
I'm going to Vegas, he said. You piece of crap.
Privileges. No, what did he say? He's going to Vegas?
He's going to go to Vegas. He said he's free. No, you're not. Shut up.
Who's going to keep you, Debbie?
Did you ever know that,
I'm
baby?
Sure you have him nailed down.
Damn.
He goes, you've kept that secret all these years. We're not married, baby. He's laughing. What?
I'm going to Vegas.
Jerk. I knew he was going to come in here. I could hear him walking down the hall, and I thought, here he comes. He was over there listening.
Excuse me, going to Vegas to confirm it? What?
To party, to
get married,
to have illicit sex with
young Fräuleins.
With young Fräuleins.
Oh, I see. Yes, he's good. I get it.
You still got me there.
I don't think that would be to his benefit.
No, he's joking, of course. Right, darling?
Yeah. So, no, I get what
find
you're
some of those
saying.
girls that are glowing.
Yes.
From the
Mr. Solution is such a card. He said he's going to go out. He's going to come out to Hollywood, sir, and find some women that are just glowing. Get it? That was tacky.
I get it. Literally.
He goes literally glowing.
Yeah. So that marriage thing, no, it was a community thing, and of course people knew it, and that's the way it really should be. Marriage should be obviously between consenting adults, and it should be a community issue. It shouldn't have the government intrusion that it has. And but like I say, the money side is really in divorce, not in marriage.
Yeah,
Hello,
we're. Hold on. We were listening to you on the loudspeakers. No, I thought you were going to.
Yeah, so you were
keep
continuing to exegete. You were at this particular juncture. So we explain why Abimelech, this issue of marriage rose to a national crisis. This was a national crisis, actually. All right? Because Abimelech issued an edict for all the people, that is, his people and the people within his jurisdiction, the Philistines. And he said, anyone who harms this man or his wife shall surely be put to death. So, wow. That's a heavy edict.
Exactly. No, you're right, Mr. Solution. But Victor had a point to make, so I'm going to put him on the spot. Go ahead and make that, roll that beautiful bean footage, Victor. Isaac.
Okay. Well, my ex-wife, what's that guy's name? Isaac actually outsmarted them all because of he got what he needed, which was his wife got to keep her life, he got to keep his, because back in those days they would kill everybody, like they said, if you had a good-looking wife or girlfriend or whatever it was. But if it's your wife, they can't fool around. Or I don't know what it all is, but the way he did it, he manipulated.
You are not making any sense.
The way he did it, he manipulated the whole thing so he would survive along with his wife.
Exactly.
Yeah,
his father did that too.
Oh.
Right. Very good, baby. He must have missed chapter 20, Mr. Solution. No, you're right. He found a loophole. He said, I'll just say she's my sister, and then we'll get in and everything will be fine. Right? Is that what you're trying to say, baby?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
exactly. Very good. I wonder how many men back then, I wonder what the average was that were put to death over the good-looking wife syndrome. That's interesting.
Big time. Boom, gone. See ya.
Yeah, Victor's very... What? Would you be dead, baby, because of me?
I'd lie like a son of a bitch.
He said, I'd lie like a son of a bitch. She's my sister. I don't even look like you, baby. You've got brown hair, brown eyes, and black hair. I've got blonde hair and blue eyes.
Well, I'd throw some mud in it.
I wonder if they could just say... What did you say?
Everybody's dirty back then. You can take a bath for 2 or 3 months.
Anyway, I'm sorry. He gets goofy sometimes.
Debbie, let me
Yes.
draw your attention to verse 12.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 12 and following. What do you think about those?
Isaac,
I'll read it if you like.
Oh, I'll read it.
So if you want to read it, go ahead.
Isaac planted crops in the land, and the same year he reaped 100-fold because the Lord had blessed him. The man became rich, and his wealth continued to grow until he became very wealthy. Okay? He had so many flocks and herds and servants that the Philistines envied him. So all the wells that his father's servants had dug in the time of his father Abraham, the Philistines covered up with mud. Now, what do you make of that? I think it's the Philistines going, you've just got just too much. This is a little bit overboard here. Right? No?
Yeah, but the fact of the matter is, you see 100-fold. I mean, that was obviously that there was a supernatural, or certainly a above human influence occurring. So they saw this. I mean, people see your crops. Crops are a very forensic or public thing, and so 100-fold. That's a lot. 100-fold.
Yeah, it was a big deal. It was a big deal to be able to stockpile your food, to be able to put it up in tins and have it stocked. We know that's a bunch of, you know what I mean, instead of just eating what you had, your daily portions and stuff.
Turkey.
Beef jerky.
And food, except in the U.S. Now, because we have been very, very fortunate, and I'm going to use the term blessed, but, you know, people's food, it's a day-to-day struggle to get sufficient food. And so it says, because the Lord blessed him, it lets you know why he reaped that 100-fold. And then it talks about him becoming rich, and his wealth continued to grow until he became very wealthy. Now, one would think that he had wealth passed to him from Abraham, but this appears to be additional wealth that Isaac himself accumulated. Mm-hmm. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I think Isaac was a very, very good man. I would have liked to have known him if I would have lived back then.
He seems like a very sweet man. He absolutely does. Very just
intelligent.
Good nature.
Intelligent, well-loved. Uh-huh.
Yeah, he had so many flocks and herds and servants that the Philistines envied him. And this is all the stuff, all the material stuff that made a person wealthy. And it's the stuff that makes a person wealthy today. They talk about in Texas, big hat, no cattle. But cattle are still an expression of wealth.
Oh, yes. The cattlemen's, the annual Cattle Barons Ball, the black and white Cattle Barons Ball, I have always wanted to attend. Victor's sister attends it every year. She gets an invitation, and I've always wanted to go. It is supposed to be where the big shots come out in Dallas.
J.R.? Yes.
Oh, yes, J.R. Ewing. J.R.'s there. No, I'm not joking, Mr. Solution. They have those big... not fat, but they call them stately men with suits on that are just gleaming, you know, with every thread, and the wives that are just, you know, knock out gorgeous, and they have just, they flaunt it, and they laugh and they drink and they sit back and they tell each other how great they are, and, you know, blah, blah, but those are the cattle barons. I have a friend of mine that's actually married to a cattle baron, and he actually buys, what do they call heifers? He buys white-faced heifers. He goes to the auction every, 2 or 3 weeks, and he's at the auction, she'll say, and he'll buy upwards to 5 to 10 white-faced heifer calves, up to $5,000 a pop.
Wow.
Yep. And
$5,000 a piece?
Yes, I'm not lying to you. And these aren't to get milk from people. These are to breed, to sell to the upper crust of slaughterhouses that, the big, exactly, and to the steak houses and the people that are really picky about their meat, and the fences, sir, that they have out on Sonia. He knows what I'm talking about. The fences that they have around these cattle, sir, they have guards out there. There's people that will attempt to steal these animals, and they take
cattle rustlers.
Absolutely, they're still out there. I mean, just like the cowboys of the old days, they are. I'm not trying to be funny. And they have a gentleman that works out there that I actually met down at her house one day. That is a full-time guard that has a little house out there, and he's out there right now. Watching those animals, and they just graze on the land, and they have full-time veterinarians. I mean, these people take this serious, and if you can get into it, of course, I'm not saying it's for somebody to do, but it's amazing how much money, you're right, is in, just like in the Bible. I mean, you can become mega wealthy on cows, basically.
Oh, absolutely, because it's food stuff. It's food stuff. And it says here, it's continuing to say, and we saw some resentment here, obviously, at Isaac. Now, remember, Isaac is a foreigner. He comes into these people's land, and he gets very wealthy. And, of course, this irritates some people. So it said in verse 15, so all the wells that his fathers... And notice the connection here. This is a historical link. Mm-hmm. So all the wells that his father's servants had dug in the time of his father Abraham, the Philistines stopped up, filling them with earth. So I think that's a manifestation of their, could we say, the old green-eyed monster had arisen.
Exactly.
And then in verse 16, what do you think about that?
It's interesting because it says, it says that then Abimelech said to Isaac, "Move away from us. You have become too powerful for us." Too powerful. This is getting a little bit ridiculous. I mean, I'm not really sure. What do you think he meant by that? Too powerful for us?
I was just about to ask you to unpack that.
The same question. You took the bite right out of my mouth. I don't know.
It's in the middle.
It's an interesting.
No, I think. Go ahead. What?
No, it's an interesting thought process there. Move away. You have become too powerful for us. I really don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, several things come to mind. Obviously, this has created kind of a national crisis, or certainly if we're dealing with a city-state here, we're dealing with a sovereign, a little country, whatever, we can see a fight going on with the Philistines. They're filling up these wells, and they know what they're doing. So there's a bit of a conflict that's arising. And of course, Abimelech sees that, and he doesn't want a war with Isaac. He doesn't want to fight Isaac, and he understands the consequences. So the best thing he can come, and of course, he doesn't want to appear favoring Isaac either. So he feels the best solution is to just have Isaac move away, because he can see the problem brewing. And we're looking at like a range war. We're seeing a conflict here. And usually the wise person, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So Abimelech just suggests, hey, we want to depart on friendly terms, and the best thing we can see for you to do is to move away. You've just become too powerful. And
but you did not sell me on that, Mr. Solution. I still am over here with my eyes going, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay, well, what do you think? I'm trying to lift out the obviousness, but what's, and that may not be, exhaustive.
Oh, no, I understand.
But,
I understand.
Yeah, but what deficit do you see?
Well, I took it one place further. I was looking at some of the experts, and one person says that Abimelech had ordered the Philistines to keep Isaac safe, but they were jealous of his success. I told you that earlier. They tried to cause problems.
But I just said. I mean, I'm not
tooting you did. You said that.
That's what I just said.
And it said they tried to cause problems for him. They tried to frighten him. Abraham and Abimelech had an agreement about wells. These wells now belong to Isaac's, but the Philistines spoiled the wells, and Abimelech told Isaac to leave the country. It says,
wait a minute. Exactly. Stop just for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you go back to, verse 14.
Right.
He had so many flocks and herds and servants that the Philistines envied him, right?
Right.
Now, those herds, can you hear me?
Right.
Are you with me?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. These flocks and herds, what do they need? They need water.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so if the Philistines are filling up, this would lead to war.
Wait a minute.
You can't kill off a man's cattle or flocks, herds.
I've got some more information.
They were filling up wells so that they drew water out of those wells to water the flocks and herds. Go ahead.
Well, I've got right here, it says, Abimelech's men did not carry out the covenant that people had made with Abraham. The covenant had showed that the wells belonged to Abraham. Water was precious, and people often quarreled over it. Lot quarreled with Abraham, remember, and the Philistines quarreled with Isaac. Later, Laban will quarrel with Jacob, such like that. And it says, but Isaac did not argue. He wanted to be at peace with the Philistines, so he just moved on elsewhere. But the arguments continued. I'm getting ahead of us. Everyone wanted a good supply of water, but Isaac just moved to another place and another place. It just seemed that he was trusting God to continue to provide for him and his people. So he was not afraid to move. Now, the name Esek means to quarrel. I don't know if you knew that or not. I just read that too.
The name what? I'm sorry.
Esek, E-S-E-K, means to quarrel. That's why.
Oh, okay.
That's why he named. What did he name? What did he name Esek? You said earlier that he named this Esek. I forgot. It was the land or.
Oh, you're talking about yes, the particular landmarks now.
Because it was because it was quarreled over. That's interesting. Very interesting. That
I got you. But yeah, this was an act of war, and of course, when you're filling up wells that everybody needs, see, they needed water too, and water was always sketchy, and it was great to find water. So obviously, God, allowed Isaac to find water in other places, like in verse 19. Isaac's servants dug in the valley and discovered a well of fresh water there.
Interesting. Water was very important.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're in the desert, people. Good morning. I mean,
Well, it was life and death. It was.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. It's underscored. It's crucial. Yeah. So
Isaac was living his life and leading his people on the belief that his father was promised by God that he would be taken care of and that he would father many nations. I believe that that's what was going on in this man's mind, that and it was the power of positive thinking. Like I said, to that time, walk in like you own the place. The night that Annette and I walked into that bar, actually thinking that we owned the bar. And I actually did a test with her out in the parking lot. I said, Annette, look at me. We own this bar. Do you understand me? That's mine. I bought that door. You picked out that. And when we walked in, it was a complete different atmosphere for us. And I think that this is a great example of the power of positive thinking. Isaac was walking around, leading people and doing everything on the belief that he was, had the Midas touch because he was blessed through Abraham, his father. And so therefore, that's all I have to say about that issue. But anyway, I'm sorry.
Well, let me buttress what you said and join with you on it. In verse 2, I think, yes, buttress is fine. It says, the Lord appeared to Isaac and said, do not go down to Egypt. Live in the land where I tell you to live. Stay in this land for a while, and I will be with you and will bless you. For to you and your descendants I will give all these lands, and will confirm the oath I swore to your father Abraham. Right. I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and will give them all these lands. And through your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed.
Okay, so now how much are you going to worry about, Mr. Solution, if I was to tell you, now look, Mr. Solution, after we get off this show tonight, I want you to know that you're never going to want for a thing, blah, 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 blah. You're going to feel pretty confident, and you're going to exude that. And I think that's a great example of this right here. I really do.
Well, yeah. And I was just saying, the record shows that, God appeared to Isaac. So he's not just, depending on Abraham would have been good enough. And I'm sure this was written. But God, again, appeared to Isaac directly and confirmed his oath.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. I didn't make a mental mark of that, but yeah, you're right. He did do that. I didn't read that much into it when there was a famine in the land, right?
Right,
okay.
Exactly. But he goes on and he gives the explanation here, because Abraham obeyed me and did everything I required of him, keeping my commandments, my decrees, and my instructions.
Which is what I was talking about at the beginning of the show. Remember, I was talking about in Isaiah, when I was talking about Isaiah 58, chapter 9, where it says, they're going, why aren't we're fasting? We're doing this. What's the deal, God? You're not answering our prayers or anything. But they were up in the towns, talking about people and running at the mouth and being ugly to each other and talking down and blaming people and pointing fingers. And you just got through saying that God does bless those that, what did you say? Keep his. That
obey him, yeah.
Yeah.
He makes that very clear, that obey. And, this is beautiful because you think, now, most of us have to figure out what God wants. And God doesn't directly communicate with us. I've never heard God's voice. Obviously, I've never seen God. But we do have a reliable record, and we can glean valuable information. But can one, possibly imagine the comfort and security if God were to appear to you directly, and I mean legitimately, and just confirm God's word? That would be. I just can't imagine the self-esteem and confidence.
The closest
that would
I've ever come, Mr. Solution, the closest I've ever come in my lifetime is Psalm 91, and I've told you 1,000 times that is the only place I've ever seen where in the Bible God himself says, look, you do this and I'll do that. If you do this, I'll do that. And Psalms written by David. David was probably, in my opinion, one of God's favorite people in the Bible. God himself actually buried David. He loved David, and David was made the most wealthiest man in the nation, even after being a slayer of Christians. But Psalm 91 is where he does make a promise where he says right here, because he loves me, says the Lord, I will rescue him, I will protect him, because he acknowledges my name, he will call on me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him, honor him with long life. I will satisfy him. That right there is where I hang a lot of my fact, a lot of the fact that I that washer is going to drive me insane if it doesn't stop that squeaking noise. It's where I hang a lot. I hang my hat on Psalm 91. I've even got it up in a couple of places in the house here, but it says right here.
And that's a good place. That's
Yes.
a good place to hang your hat, for sure, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I was just looking at verse 26. What do you think about? Actually, 23 through 26 and following. What do you think about? I think those really tie into what we're talking about.
Just sort of a little reminder.
about-
Just a little reminder. From there, he went up to Beersheba the night that the Lord appeared to him and said, I am God, the father of Abraham. I am the God of your father Abraham. Do not be afraid. I am with you. I will bless you and increase the numbers of your descendants. Sir, I'm reading 23. You must think I'm insane. It says, meanwhile, did you say 26? I was reading 23, sir. I'm sorry.
You're fine. Continue. You're fine.
I will be with you and bless you and increase the number of your descendants for the sake of my servant Abraham. Now, that's where I got that from, and you argued with me. I think that by virtue, he got in on Abraham's word. But anyway, I'm being silly, of course.
Okay.
Then Isaac built the altar and called on the name of the Lord and started to dig wells and stuff with his servants. 26 reads, meanwhile, back at the ranch here, Abimelech had come to him from Gerar with Ahuzath, his personal advisor, and Phicol, that doesn't sound right, Phicol, the commander of his his forces. Isaac said to them, why have you, what are you doing? Why have you come to me, since you were so mean to me and sent me away? And they answered,
Right.
We saw clearly that the Lord is with you. So we said there ought to be a sworn agreement between us between us and you. Let us make a treaty. Now there we go. There's what we're looking for right there. Let us make a treaty with you that you will do us no harm, just as we did not harm you, but always treated you well and sent you away peacefully, and now you are blessed by the Lord. They're going, he has got the Midas touch. He's doing something right. I mean, so he's doing something right. The Lord is with you. We can see that because, I mean, the guy could not, he could not have a footfall where he wasn't, I mean, he probably never stumped his foot. I mean, that's what I'm saying. The guy obviously had the Midas touch. I mean, of course, I'm being silly when I say that, but I'm being serious. I mean, the guy obviously was, drawing a winning number just about every time. And so they're going, wait a minute. Why did we send him away? He's really a good guy, really. Am I rambling?
No, you're fine. And I think, no, you're quite fine. And I think they're fearing retribution, too, because they're covering their butts.
Well, now, he doesn't have an army, though. Isaac doesn't have an army. What do you mean?
But remember what Abraham did with 400 servants. He went to rescue Lot.
Yeah, you're right.
So there's quite a few things going on here. And, of course, Isaac interpreted, and I did too, but Isaac just spells it out here in verse 26, the latter part. Why have you come to me, since you were hostile to me and sent me away? But look who Abimelech brought with him. Now, like I say, I do think Abimelech was a peacekeeper. He didn't want to fight with Isaac, but he saw what was going on with other Philistine people, and probably some of those were prominent people. Let's assume they were. And this came to national attention. But in verse 26, it says, meanwhile, Abimelech had come to him from Gerar with Ahuzzath,
the speaker of the
he
brought the speaker of the house and the
and
minister
the
of
defense,
the minister of defense. Exactly.
So this was an official visit to let me use the term, I think, ingratiate or to find favor with Isaac.
Yeah, you're definitely right.
And of course Isaac asked him, and I think Isaac felt hurt that he asked him to leave. And, of course, now, obviously, Abimelech had time to think this over. And he said, well, I need to make good on... Abimelech realized that Isaac felt this way. And so that's why he comes out, I believe. But go ahead. I think you were going to respond to it. Please proceed.
Well, then it says that Isaac made a feast for them, and he called for his pipe, and he called for his bowl, and he called for his fiddler's three, and he ate and drank. Now, it says, early the next morning, these men swore an oath to each other, which they don't really get the specifics of that oath, but I'm sure it said something like, it's like a peace treaty or whatever. Then Isaac sent them on their way, and they went away peacefully. And then that's pretty much the end of it. It says, that day, Isaac's servants came and told him about the well that they had dug, and they said, we found water. So he called it Sheba, and said, and to this day, the name of the town is called Beersheba. So
Absolutely. Well, verse 29 tells us the content, at least in gist, what the content of that treaty would have been.
Right. No
you
harm.
Want to read 29?
Well, it just said, you want to read 29? No, go ahead. It says about no harm, right?
I'll read it. It says, verse 29, that you will do us no harm, just as we did no harm to you, but always treated you well and sent you away peacefully. And now you are blessed by the Lord. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Lord didn't pay Abimelech a visit.
Just wait. Wait.
He was uncomfortable. He was uncomfortable with the way things had transpired, the conditions under which Isaac left. And understand, Abimelech may have not been in agreement with having to send Isaac away. He just didn't see any other way. But he certainly wanted to follow up and make peace with Isaac.
Well, I sort of skipped ahead a few books, and one of them is titled The Fall of Abimelech. He ends up killing, or do you know the story of when he slaughtered 70 brothers? And God put an evil spirit in his... Yeah, God cast an evil, or allowed an evil spirit to come over. Yeah, so he does get a little crooked later on. He only reigned for 3 years.
Okay.
And this isn't a different Abimelech. I was making sure I didn't sound like an idiot over here talking about it, and I forgot what book I was in, but it was something, not Exodus or Leviticus, Deuteronomy.
Let me ask you, Debbie. Now, since this, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Now since this is this has been quite a few years since Abraham.
Right.
So my question to you, and since Abimelech is more or less a title, is this the same Abimelech?
It's in the book of Judges. It's in the book of Judges. I don't know. I didn't read that much into it, but I did see where the next thing that talks about the name Abimelech is in the book of Judges, and it's called the fall of Abimelech, and it didn't.
Okay, so we're talking about this Abimelech that was dealing with Isaac.
Again, like Pharaoh, and I keep forgetting Pharaoh. That's what.
Yes.
Yeah.
These can be different people with the same title.
Right. Pope. Just like
that's okay. No, it's fine. That's just you say that's you're reading out of a commentary, presumably.
No, actually, this was out of the Bible. I jumped ahead. I just did a search on BibleGateway.com. I'm going to try to get sponsored by them. I wonder if they sponsor people. And I skipped ahead. I'm joking. I skipped ahead, and it talks about him in the book of Judges, which is not too far away from Genesis. I think it's Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and then it's Judges after that. No? I forgot.
I'm not sure of the location. I know the Pentateuch fairly well. But look, no, I think what you're saying is unique because I've not heard. Did I recommend Bible Gateway to you, or did you know it before you and I collaborated?
You never even heard of it. You ranted for 3 weeks on how cool the audio Bible was. I just love that reader you called it.
No. I knew about it way before meeting you. I just didn't know that particular feature.
Yeah, I know. But no, I don't know. Did you know Bible Gateway
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio. Goodbye.
That is the cutoff from Blog Talk Radio. That signals that the time is up, and it's just sort of a whoosh. They just sort of rip you off without... it's funny on Blog Talk Radio, now that I actually sit here and think about that for a second, they give you notice when you're going to go on the air. Your show will begin in 10. I think that they should give you some sort of a... Well, wait a minute, they do, but I was actually dialed in. Who am I talking to? Talking to myself now. Wow. So he knows what he's used to that cutoff. Let's check the chat room on Blog Talk Radio and see what's going on. Hello, Debbie. Tell Mr. Solution to stop by the All Facts show after your show. He is running from hard topics in love, in religion. Okay. Okay. And then No Facts says, I am No Facts, the alter ego of All Facts. Our stock in trade is bullshit. No facts here. Keep moving. That's interesting. Let's check the chat room on Spreaker.com and see what's going on over there. 1 o'clock, that's when they pull it. Over on the Spreaker chat room, we have 48 unread messages. I was so much engrossed with Mr. Solution talking about stuff. I hear a hissing noise. So, Deshaun, are you still on the call? Oh, I can just disconnect.
Yeah.
Oh, damn it, Robin Deshaun said, yeah, I clicked disconnect. Deshaun, if you want to call me back, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. 48 messages we're reading. Let's see. I'm sorry, I hung up on you. Let me cancel the scroll right here. If the Creator was to reveal to the world his existence, it would go against the plan of free will. RD says, nice point. All the texts are nice, a source for philosophy, just as long as you keep an open mind. True. Let's see what else we've got. Slayer. So, to get you up to speed on Debi's show, religion talk about Fukushima, Deshaun called in to thank Debi for making sure he was all right. Some random topics talk about Tombstone Cemetery. Some random topics, I might have missed something. Well, now, we only do this on Sunday night. Philistines is funny, by the way. We have a proverb in Holland about them. It's very negative. I'm sure you can't shock Debi, says Slayer. Slayer would be right about that. Then Let's see. We've got Deshaun talking. 145 minutes. Well, how long is this going to go? Let's see. What else we got? An iodine supplement is safe, says Slayer 454. Potassium iodide is risky and only used as a last resort. Talking about the fallout of Fukushima. Yeah. And then, well, thank you for your comments, Slayer 54. And Fukushima is a global event not contained to just Japan, the Pacific, and the west coast of the United States. I'm new to the Fukushima thingy. I mean, last night I thought he was talking about a camera when he called. I mean, I knew about the explosion. I mean, the tsunami and all that, but I wasn't. Slayer also says the Pacific Ocean is the source of most rain and snow for America. You can see the levels going up on NETC right now from the weather. Oh, wow. Yeah, okay. America and Japanese governments have been covering up the fact for 3 years. I'm completely with you on that. I think it goes further than that. I think it's even a part of some really sick thing. But anyway, let's see. Jonathan says, if I counted right, there were 6 or 7 listed at the boothillgraves.com. Bless his heart. We were giving him a hard time about the suicides. I mean, I believe him. I mean, I'm quite sure. I do know that one of the most famous suicides that's very, it's covered up is the suicide of Johnny Ringgold. His name was actually Ringhold, Ringgold. He actually committed suicide when he thought that Doc Holliday was going to come up there to that tree that he was going to meet him at. He said, meet him at the oak by, can you hear that knocking noise? That's Gunner's tail. Meeting by the oak by Cypress Creek. And when he went up there, and in the movie, it's portrayed in both movies that they made out of it. Well, actually, several of them, actually. He says, why, Johnny Ringo, you look like somebody just walked over your grave. And that's because Ringgold and Holiday were two of the most, I'm fixing to tell y'all a fact that's going to blow your mind. Ringgold and Holiday were two of the fastest guns in the West. And back then, of course, you know, in the Old West, which I'm fascinated by it. My grandfather had books and books and books on the Old West. I'm fascinated with the Old West. Back then, you were known by how quick you were to draw. Obviously, some people know that, but you got reputations. And Holiday was just as feared of Ringgold as Ringgold was of Holiday. But then whenever Tombstone came along and Holiday came down there to meet up with the Earps, he felt like a brother to those guys. And when he met up with them down there, Ringgold was hanging out with the Cowboys and the Clantons and the McLowrys and Billy Ray Cyrus. I want to say Billy Ray Cyrus. No, that's Miley Cyrus's dad. Billy Ray forget it. Something Bob Brocious. His last name was Brocious. And whenever he was hanging out, he was involved in the dark crowd, in the bad crowd, the bad guys. And he realized he saw Holiday doing some sharpshooting around in the town, and thought, oops, this guy's pretty good. And not only that, he carried knives with him too. And Holiday had 2 guns. When he pulled, he was ambidextrous with his shooting. I couldn't shoot with my left hand if my life depended on it. But he would pull from his left and from his right. He had a 6-shooter on both sides with pearl handles. But anyway, supposedly the inside story is that Johnny Ringgold, they call him Ringo, was scared to death of Doc Holliday. And whenever they went in after the murder, after the slaughter of the 2 boys, Billy Clanton, and at the OK Corral, the Earps, and then they subsequently killed Morgan Earp. They slaughtered him in a pool hall one night. then the Earps declared that they were going to go wipe the cowboys out. And for 2 years, they set out, like I said, to knock them all down one by one by one. Well, when it got down to, they wanted to get Ringo. They'd already got Billy Ray Brocious. Is it Billy Ray? Who cares? Anyway, Curly Bill. That's his name. Curly Bill was his name. Curly Bill Brocious. But anyway, when it got down to Ringgold, they wanted just a shootout between White Earp and Johnny Ringo. Johnny Ringo said to have White Earp meet me for take 10 paces and then turn and fire. And Doc Holliday had told Earp, White, you're not going to be able to beat him. He's faster than you. So he dressed up in a disguise, sort of. He put on the sheriff's badge and went up there to the Oak up at the meeting place. And story is told that when he got there, that there was one bullet wound in the side of his head that was from his own gun. And even Ike Clanton Jr. today tells the story that the legend wanted Ringgold to die with dignity, but the truth of the matter is what happened that day. Some of Ringo's men said that they heard the gun go off right after Doc Holliday walked up there. So he said, instead of you killing me, I'd rather kill myself. Knowing that Holliday could kill him, because Holliday was supposedly one of the fastest, if not, other than Wild Bill, he was the fastest draw ever in the history. I mean, I think that would be amazing to see. But having said all that banter, that's a suicide right there, to back up Jonathan's claim earlier that many people in the Old West died of suicide. I was a little bit perplexed at that. I know a lot of them died from disease. The typhoid fever ravaged many people. It was a death wish. If you got the typhoid, there was no going down to your Walgreens and getting your prescription of amoxicillin and knocking that little bitch right out. You just laid there and burned up like a piece of toast, and you just fried your brain out, and you died. Your liver died. You just died. And I know many children did not live through childbirth because they were, there wasn't hospitals and emergency rooms and midwives and pediatricians and obstetricians and gynecologists that didn't have that. You just started screaming, and whoever was around would help you get this thing out, and then hopefully the cord wouldn't be wrapped around its neck, or you wouldn't do whatever wrong, or the process of birth was very dangerous for not only the mother, but many children did not live also past age 1 or 2, because another reason is a lot of these women were not able to wet nurse these children. They had too much to do. They couldn't sit, because when you're nursing a newborn, sometimes it can be, you have to literally make yourself available to that baby nonstop, 24/7. You never know when it's going to wake up. And I mean, sometimes they wake up every 45 minutes for a spell, and then sometimes they'll sleep. But so what they would do is they would feed these babies. Now, this actually happened in my family tree to a child. They would feed the children milk. And many of the children died because a little tiny newborn's intestinal tract cannot digest. They don't have the enzymatic process to digest the milk from an animal. And they died of whatever they call that, grips or something. It was supposedly a very painful way for the baby to go. They just cried and cried because it was so painful. But a lot of the babies died. And that's the only thing I really know. I could do the research and get statistics and actual facts, but that's what I just know off the top of my head from memory with the Old West, the deaths that occurred in the Old West. But many of them was murder, and many of them were punishable. Now, the wild, they call it the Wild West because it was. There was no law west of the Pecos. No, I mean, there was no law. There was just you can imagine having a town where there's all these men and everything's legal, sort of like going to Cancun, there's, it's whatever goes. But, so many people were killed by revenge. If you were caught stealing a horse, you were hung. So many people died of being hung from a tree, or whatever. And one of the most rotten things these people would do is they would put you on the horse that you stole, and then they would tie the rope around your neck, and then they would slap the horse. And when the horse ran away, you got hung, whatever. But I know a lot of people died from hunger, and also, again, a lot of people died from tuberculosis. A lot of people think that the lifespan was much shorter back then, and it really wasn't. A lot of people lived a very old age, but the reason the lifespan was short is they got sick. You had to just be very careful back then and keep yourself within your family. You didn't go to movie houses, and you didn't go into big places because you didn't know who was diseased or who was sick, or everything was kept within. You stayed pretty much where you were within your family, and if somebody got sick, they could be so cruel as to send them away to another area of the land to live, like in a barn or something, if they were sick. Because you look at what just this flu did in our household here. Both households, both my children's, and then in what we call the main house. And I mean, it went through the baby and Heather, but it actually came from her boyfriend's house, to tell you the truth, because his mother and he's got a great family over there, and he's got a mom and dad that have been married together forever, and they have fun with the kids all the time, and it's a real jovial atmosphere for both Heather and the little one. And so Vic and I are much in favor. And I was going to say something about that too. I want to get on record, if anything, just for my family and people that listen to me that know me, and for future, when my children listen to this, years from now, whatever. I was doing some research today on something, and I came across some statistics that I thought were very, very interesting, and that is older children staying in this economy with the family. There are many experts out there that say that in today's society, it is not beneficial, so to speak, to kick a kid out when they're 18, like it was back, 20, 30, 40 years ago. When you turned 18, you were gone. Because nowadays, they can go out and land a job at, say, $30,000 a year, $40,000 a year, and rent and housing alone can cost upwards to, a large percent of that. And then if they're going to have any kind of, it's budgeted to where today's economy, they just almost can't do it. And then they've got, a decent car payment and insurance on the car. And then they've got, obviously, maintenance around their house. They've got electricity. They've got internet service, cell phone payments, gasoline, fuel. And it's just almost impossible. More and more older children are opting to stay or come back to, after college, come back to the family home. And it is also beneficial, they said, because it keeps the family together, because we are obviously a great influence on the raising of my daughter's child. I'm always there at mealtime, finish your plate. And she's young, she's Facebook and the Kardashians and things like that. I mean, she doesn't necessarily, she's not really, she's unbelievable as a mother, comparatively speaking, with some of the other people that I've come in encounter with. She's a doting mother, much like, to give you a comparison, if you've ever seen the Kardashians, which I'm forced to see sometimes, but the younger one, the older one that's shorter, I think her name's Courtney. The older one. Let's see, there's Kim, Courtney, and Chloe. Chloe's the one that's the big girl that married the basketball star. And Courtney is the one that went with the wild ass, the cute guy. And that's the exact mother that Heather is. She never goes out. She's always doting over him. He is her world. And the father turned out to be it was a blessing that we ran him off. He ran himself off. He actually ran off whenever I was bankrolling their entire monthly expenses. I was paying $700 for rent. I was paying their cable. And then when he landed a great job, I said, well, it looks like you'll be picking up the rent. He was gone within, poof. He's a mama's boy. His mother would bring over his lunch that she had made. It was really a very weird situation. And I'm glad to say that they dissolved that union. And he now is married to another girl that looks identical to my daughter. And they have one baby, and they're expecting another one. And I tell Heather it was an act of God that she didn't get tied down, because he's abusive. He's one of those undercover abusers that are, glad handing you. For example, one night he went over and was horrible to her. She came into one entrance of the house to her father, straight to her father, crying. He had manhandled her too much. And in the interim, telephoned me. I was in another part of the house and said, hey, Debbie, it's me. And I was like, oh, hey. And he goes, I just wanted to let you know that Heather and I got into a little tiff. And you would have been so proud of me, because I was working with him on his anger skills. I was so cool-headed, and I just wanted to let you know that you would have been proud. Well, in the interim, he was trying to get the jump on Heather, because he had actually grabbed her and threw her into the bushes, and then took off his wedding ring and threw it, just being an idiot, an outright idiot. I can't fathom Victor doing any of that when we were first married. What is that noise? Oh, it's Fufu. She's in her crate. Anyway, I don't know if y'all can hear that knocking noise. But anyway, so I'm just babbling on here about nothing, but this is what you do when you sleep for a week. I literally slept around the clock. I didn't broadcast for 5 days, and I guarantee you that out of, we'll say 100 hours, I slept 85 hours, literally slept that much. I would wake up and look at the clock. I have an atomic clock right here over my area, and I have an extremely comfortable. It's one of those benches that you can sit on that's got the curve at one end, and I'm on it right now. And if I wanted to, I just kind of stretch out on it. Well, when I would look up at the clock, I would see like 1:20. I honestly would not know if it was 1:20 a.m. or 1:20 p.m. because my days and nights were that mixed up. So but I'm the kind of person that has always been taught, and I always believe that sleep is like a bank account. We make deposits, and you can be up in credit and miss sleep. I'm to the point right now that I was on a extreme schedule for 20 years, the past 20 years of my life. I had to be up to bat every morning at 6:30, getting the crew ready for their day that day, which was finding everything from science books to backpacks to tennis shoes to, cheerleading pom-poms to whatever. And I had to be, and we lived in the country. I had to drive those children to school. There was no bus service. And I had to be on point every day. And then I had to be back there. My day came to a close after turning out horses, feeding horses, preparing my dinner, getting my house in working condition, put back together and futzing around with errands I had to run. My day ended at 2:30 because I had to go back to pick them up. And then after that, it could be anywhere from, gymnastics class to whatever with Stephen classes. And I pretty much now do whatever the hell I want to do. I tell people I'm like Forrest Gump. When I'm tired, I sleep. When I'm hungry, I eat. And I make my own schedule. I do whatever I feel like doing. I mean, I'm not saying that I don't have responsibilities. I mean, we know that I've got responsibilities. I wouldn't be sitting here if I shucked them. But I find time to get on and do my what I call I call it my bookkeeping. I keep extensive books of all of the finances, of where every penny goes, where it comes in, where it goes, and I keep ledgers. I do QuickBooks, but I do that for the family business. I've always done that, and I'm basically Grand Central. Everything goes over my desk. I basically run this. I basically manage this family, which is it's something to be said, managing a family. But I also keep my finger in 2 brick and mortar businesses. I keep my hand watching over those, and then so that's a little bit about me. And I have no idea why I'm sitting here just bloviating, looking at this thing that says Holy Bible, red letter. What does it say? It says King James Version, red letter edition, Regency. It's a Bible my grandmother gave me. I'm just sitting here looking at things around my desk. So there you go. That is another episode of Debbie and Mr. Solution Takes on the Bible. So I've talked 20 minutes over the time that I hung up with Solution. This is Debbie saying good night and have a pleasant tomorrow. But wait a minute, let me do one more thingy-dingy. I don't know when I'll be on again. It's just kind of whenever I do this thing. I wanted to pick up my show page over here before I bid you all adieu. Somebody asked me 2 days ago, what does adieu mean? I said, well, it's not adieu, it's French, it's adieu. It means, obviously, farewell, bid you farewell. Let's see, where am I? Duct tape. Show all history. Ugh, where is it? I have to do yesterday. Where is Spreaker.com? There it is. Yeah, A Visit from the Fat Red Dragon was the show where we were talking about that nuclear idiotic bullshizzle that's going on. Are you kidding me? Get your act together. Thank you for 136 listens overnight. That was pretty good. Profile, where am I? There we go. Sunday night with Mr. Solution. All right, let's pick up and say goodnight to the chat room one more time, and I will get out of here and tell you guys, yeah, good night, RD. Good night, everybody. Oh, no, it's trouble in my room. There he is. This is Lester Bartholomew Jones. I love that drop. What is that? He says. He's just so funny. American, let's see, I agree. I read somewhere that Facebook has more info on more Americans. Y'all are just talking, but hello. Y'all are talking amongst yourself, and that's good. I don't know about Facebook. I'm getting tired of Facebook, too. I have an old relative from the Wild West days, Cole Young. He died at 72 and was partnered up with Frank James. Get out of town. Really? Well, you would die if you knew who was in my family tree. Judd Roy Bean, the law west of the Pecos. I kid you not. My grandmother, my great aunt. Yes, it is a great job. Thank you. My great aunt was so goodbye humanoids, was so embarrassed that she had the name changed. I mean, spelled different. So she added an E on the end of the name, and my great aunt, Aunt Clara, she was a cool person. You know, back in the old days, you could just become what you wanted just by saying that's what you were. I mean, most of my entire family, throughout my father's family, all were college graduates, but I think I'm going to close it with me playing a little rendition on the piano that you will enjoy. It's a very small piano, and it took several tries, but I did pull it off. Here is my rendition of Jules' Mad World. I will bid you all adieu. Thank you. And here we go. Take us out, Debbie. You know, a little bit of that goes a long way. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to have crushed your brain cells with that. I'm sorry. That was stupid. We've got, there's a toy piano over here. And Mad World is very easy to play. It's just, two key, you just go key, ding, 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 ding on your left hand. Get that going. Then you just go, dun, 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 dun. It's pretty easy to play. And that was on a toy piano, though. So anyway. All right. Good night and have a pleasant tomorrow. Thanks, guys. See you later, alligator.